What good folks, it's Darktree19 and welcome back to another What If, and I believe this is What If Naruto was Sephiroth Reincarnation Part 3, so like, comment, subscribe and share, but besides all that, enjoy the video. Chapter 4 Confrontation. Sephiroth descended upon the ground of the land before him, as he set Haku onto the ground, and looked at the area he was in. Fortunately, Haku had traveled over the years to various places of the elemental countries with Zabuza, and knew that the land of sea was a place that Leaf Shinobi barely ever went. In fact, it was such a minor country that the chances of them being spotted by agents of the Leaf, or anyone else, would be slim to none. So this is the land of sea. It doesn't look like much, said Sephiroth, as he studied the area around him, but could see why it would be a suitable location, and safe place to hide. For a time. I hope it will suffice for the moment, Sephiroth-sama, said Haku, as she knew that the warrior before her was trusting her judgment, and choice in location to hide from their enemies. I'm sure it will. We just need to acquire some living accommodations, said Sephiroth, as he saw a village nearby in the distance, and began walking towards it before stopping to look at Haku. What is it, Sephiroth-sama? Said Haku worriedly at his gaze. You will need to change into your civilian clothing. If they see you in your current attire, they will suspect something, and word will one day reach the Leaf, said Sephiroth, seeing the girl stiffen and quickly reach for the scroll that contained her clothes before she froze again, realizing that the area around them had little to no privacy to change. Could I perhaps have a chance to change in private, Sephiroth-sama? Said Haku, as she blushed behind her mask, and hoped the angelic boy didn't make her change in front of him. Of course. That boulder over there should suffice, said Sephiroth, seeing the large rock near her that seemed large enough for the girl to change. Quick as a flash, Haku was behind it, changing quietly, and almost as quickly she was in her civilian clothing with the once tied-up hair now down past her shoulders. The silver-haired man smirked at how Haku seemed to glow while walking towards him, and with pride in her step as they headed towards the town. If Sephiroth didn't know any better, he would think Haku was acting like she was now walking with her future husband, and was happy about the arrangement. But that was absurd. Right? As the two walked into the town, they saw the place was a little better off than what Wave Country had gone through with Gato, and yet they were still doing much better regardless of the comparison. Still, the people looked depressed, and suffering from the effects of something in the land that was unhealthy to their lifestyle. The two wondered what was causing harm when the answer appeared before their eyes, when a group of people started attacking a girl covered in bandages with rocks, bottles, and calling her names. The bandaged girl was trying to dodge them, but there were too many projectiles, and too many people throwing them. The moment froze Sephiroth in his tracks, as memories of his life living in that false shell of a body, and going by the name Uzumaki Naruto entered his mind. Moments like these in the Leaf, actions from people like these in the Leaf, and the current victim of suggest oppression being like him when he was in the Leaf. It was inexcusable. Get out of here, monster. It's because of you our country has been slowly dying, said one person throwing a rock. It's because of you I lost my husband, said angry irate woman holding a club trying to hit the girl and break one of her limbs. Die freak, yelled out another with a knife. Sephiroth-sama, we can't let her suffer like this, said Haku, as she saw some of her life in that moment with her father killing her mother, and then his attempt on herself before the activating of her bloodline that caused the man's death. No, Haku, we can't. But at the same time, our intervention will spread word of us, and bring about problems, said Sephiroth, as he frowned before thinking up a way to save the girl, and walked towards the mob while silently signaling Haku to stay behind to watch. Time to die, fiend, said a man ready to strike the girl with a broken sake bottle, but was stopped when he felt his body freeze, and saw other people around him freezing up too. What? Said the girl, as she looked around, and saw the people appeared to be frozen in time. Don't think. Just run, said Sephiroth, whispered through the crowd, knowing that the mob of people couldn't see him, and kept his identity safe in their paralyzed state, thanks to his paralysis spell. The bandaged girl, who was not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, ran away from the frozen mob, and past a girl she had never seen before. After that happened, Sephiroth made his way back to Haku, who was smiling at him, and he motioned for her to follow. They followed the girl to a small house by a beach quite a distance from town, and from what they saw, the person of interest to them didn't have any footwear, and probably had sore feet. The house itself was more like a shack, and with enough severe weather could fall to pieces while burying the person inside of it alive. Why do you think this girl is hated, Sephiroth-sama? Is she someone like you? Or does she possibly possess a bloodline like myself? Said Haku, as she saw the calculating look on her master's face, and she was sure he was thinking the same thing. I don't know, Haku. Whatever the reason, we will learn of it, and deal with the problem accordingly, said Sephiroth with his voice cold and promising pain to whatever was the source of this girl's problems. What if it is the girl herself? Said Haku, as there was a very small chance that this girl was the source of the land's suffering, and was somehow taking the abuse to further some evil scheme. Again, the chance of that being was very small. Pray it never comes to that, said Sephiroth, as they walked to the shack, and he sensed the bandaged girl was there before she came out with a scowl on her face. I've never seen either of you here before. Are you assassins? Someone the people hired to kill me? Said the bandaged girl. We are something similar to what you described us to be, though we are not here to take your life, said Sephiroth, seeing the girl tense in their presence, and wondered if she had heard something like this before with someone else. Your voice. It was you. You somehow saved me from that mob. Why? Said the girl, having recognized the boy's voice and the slightly older girl beside him when running. I'll tell you if you tell me your name and why you're being persecuted by these fools, said Sephiroth, seeing the bandaged girl look scared for a moment, then glared at him. My name is none of your business, and neither is the reason why they hate me. Now leave me alone, said the girl before storming back into her home. What should we do now, Sephiroth-sama? Said Haku, whispering to Sephiroth after seeing her master turn away from the shack in thought. Go back into the village. Find out what you can before reporting back here without being followed. I will stay here and observe our mystery girl to see what happens, said Sephiroth, seeing Haku nod, knowing that she could no doubt use her charms to get more than enough information out of the people in town. Turning back to the shack, Sephiroth narrowed his eyes before walking away to a more strategic position to watch the area without interruption, and without the wounded girl from knowing. One way or another, he would learn the truth in what made this girl a supposed monster, and would seek to fix this situation. Konoha at the moment, did you hear? The monster attacked Shinon Team 8 and Shinon Team 9 on their C-ranked mission, said a shinobi talking to a civilian. Yes. It's amazing they even survived. I hear the Hyuga heiress wasn't even harmed by it at all. Like she had some kind of power over him, said another person, having heard about it from someone else. Do you think the Hyuga heiress may have some form of Senju blood in her? It was said they had the power to stop demons. Maybe that power applies to it too? Said another shinobi, with more people talking about it all over the village with great passion. The only one not liking the story was Uchiha Sasuke, who began to interrogate his fellow Leaf shinobi involved in the mission about it, and got their version of things. For the most part, Sasuke was not impressed by what had happened, and even said that Sephiroth was not as strong like everyone claimed him to be if he didn't kill 6 Shinon or their 2 Jounin sensais. Surprisingly, each Shinon defended Sephiroth's actions not because the swordsman spared their life, but rather chose to kill only when it was the best time to kill, and whom he wanted to that would benefit his needs. Even Guy, along with Kurenai, had expressed a need to defend Sephiroth's actions in sparing their lives for similar reasons, and that the one-winged angel of death was indeed the master tactician all the legends behind his story claimed he had been centuries ago. Each move was calculated to bring about the desire Sephiroth wished to achieve, which had resulted in restricted reinforcements from the Leaf, Gado's death, and new life being breathed into Wave Country. Another thing that couldn't be overlooked was Momochi Zabuza now had the finances needed to fund an army against the Mizukage and take over Mist with those inside that opposed the man's rule. If and when Zabuza took over Mist, he would no doubt welcome Sephiroth to the village, as an honored, and a powerful ally. What concerned the councils, however, was the rumored information about Zabuza's ice-using bloodline apprentice no longer being with the Demon of Mist, and possibly decided to travel with Sephiroth to be his secret weapon. Some feared that the girl would be used for more in terms of having the silver-haired boy's child in the distant future and bring about an even greater threat than what they were facing now. The governing body of the Leaf had argued for what seemed like hours on how to deal with this little development and had not come to a conclusion on the matter. Some said the female ice user should be captured to be forced into a breeding program to bring such a bloodline into the Leaf, since it was clear the Mizukage would kill the girl should she be returned to the Mist. Others said to use her against Sephiroth, to force the boy into a situation where the girl could be used to control the swordsman, and bend him to their will. Some suggested to kill her to make Sephiroth suffer if he had some kind of romantic attachment to the girl and bring about agonizing pain. Tsunade suggested they leave the girl. They refused to call her by name, Haku alone, as such actions would no doubt send Sephiroth into a rage, and obliterate the Leaf off the map like the angelic figure had done centuries ago to a place twice the size of Konoha in the past. The clan heads were also for that option too, as they believed Haku would quite possibly be Sephiroth's conscious over time, and maybe even soothe the bloodlust in his heart. Instead of fanning the flames like the councils wanted, they along with the Hokage believed Haku could slowly cause them to die out, and leave the Leaf if not the world alone. "How's your cousin doing, Neji?" said Tenten, as she was walking with her teammate, and seeing his scowling a little bit more than ever. She is doing fine. Hinata-sama is expected to begin training soon under the Hokage in the medical arts soon and be her apprentice, said Neji, as he was internally grateful for his cousin's actions, but his pride along with years of humiliation of the branch family at the hands of the main family prevented himself from expressing his thanks. Really? Wow. I knew Hinata-san did a first-rate job healing us, but to be acknowledged by Tsunade-sama herself is really something. And, oh, I would just kill for that honor, said Tenten, as she sought Tsunade to be an idol in terms of what female shinobi should be, and not those silly fangirls always chasing the Uchiha just to get into his pants. Yes. Hinata-sama herself was quite surprised by this honor given by the Hokage. Most of my clan, however, is not thrilled by this news, and is seeking to prevent it, said Neji, as he felt conflicted about the Hyuga elders' actions in wanting Hinata to not be a medic, and for the reasons they stated. What? Are they nuts? It was because of your cousin's skills we didn't come back to the leaf a crippled mess. Your cousin could become the first among the new medic nins. I heard Tsunade wants to integrate into teams to lower casualty rates when on missions. Don't take this the wrong way, Neji, but your clan is really narrow-minded, and are acting like a bunch of bakas. Present company excluded, of course, said Tenten, as she saw Neji's scowl deepen, and hoped he didn't take it the wrong way. I'm not offended, Tenten. There are times I feel my clan needs to change if we are to survive in these changing times, but those in charge of the clan know that they will lose power, and people with power don't surrender it so easily, said Neji, knowing that all those in the main family feared two things, and one of them was being branded with the cage bird seal to make themselves a branch member of the clan. What do you think of your cousin's opportunity? Said Tenten, while hoping Neji would think it was something positive for Hinata to embrace since she knew the girl was shy. It's a great honor, like you said, Tenten, as many would kill for the honor to be taught by Senju Tsunade, and Hinata-sama seems to qualified to learn without her being from the Hyuga main family influencing such a decision, said Neji, while trying to stamp on the feeling of regret and hating his cousin, since it was clear Hinata had feel that she could become good at. Did you tell her how proud you were? Said Tenten, seeing Neji shake his head no. It is not my place to congratulate Hinata-sama, for I am of the branch family, and even if it was my place there is a chance my actions could be frowned upon by some of the main family, said Neji, knowing his position was double-edged right now. You are unbelievable, Neji, said Tenten before walking away from him with an angry look on her face. Why must fate be cruel? Thought Neji, knowing this would bite him in the ass later when their team formed again for training or a mission. Not that far away, Nara Shikamaru was eating at Choji's favorite barbecue restaurant with Seta Kimichi and teammate Yamanaka Ino, with the platinum blonde girl watching with disgust at how much her big-boned teammate could eat so much. Ino herself wanted to keep her body from becoming like that and kept herself on a diet that she felt would help keep it from becoming a thing of horror. What's on your mind, Shikamaru? Not even you eat lazily here, said Ino, as she would admit the food was good, even if it wasn't entire in diet format, and watching the Nara frown in frustration. Naruto. Or I guess the more proper name for him would be Sephiroth, said Shikamaru, as he found the whole situation eating at his mind, and it was becoming increasingly hard to want to stare at clouds instead of think. What about him? Said Ino, as she knew that despite Shikamaru's laziness, the boy was a genius at heart, and just needed the right motivation to work his mind properly. It's not him personally, Ino. It's what he did in Wave Country. My dad brought home a copy of the mission report home for me to look at. He basically tested me on the damn thing, and I ran through the scenario the way he described different things that occurred. Everything from the terrain, key moments during their first battle, after the battle, and see into the reasoning why Sephiroth let two Jinan teams along with the client live. I never saw it coming. I thought they were done for sure the moment my old man told me how Jinan Team 9 was wiped out in a single moment, Team 8 soon following, and then their sensais following suit. Each of them were taken down by one person. Zabuza didn't lift a finger, and the only thing he did was help plan the diversion to make the genins of the group show what they could do. The client was defenseless for over 1 minute, which in the shinobi world is a lifetime if your job is to kill the target, and more of an eternity if the target is a drunk old man on his knees begging for his life, said Shikamaru, as he was stumped the moment his father told him everything up to that point, and asked what he thought of the situation, the young Nara heir stating it was checkmate. So when Sephiroth spared them all, including the bridge builder, you were stumped, and basically had a major brain freeze, said Choji, knowing his friend well when it comes to difficult to solve problems. Exactly. My dad then went through each moment with the teams up to having their wounds healed, but still mostly down 90 to 95% their combined strength, and the events that happened afterwards. The only one still able to protect the client was Team 8, and even then they wouldn't have been a match for Sephiroth, much less Zabuza's forces. Hinata and Kiba were both taken down by that Haku girl, who was only known to them on a pure fluke when Hinata went into the forest and gather herbs for healing. Even with the Anbu team the Hokage sent to back them up, there was still no chance of Team 8 coming out of the mission on top, and being able to successfully protect the old bridge builder, said Shikamaru, as he ran through every scenario his genius mind could come up with to defeat them all, and came up with absolutely nothing. Had Sephiroth not decided to turn on Gato, they would be burying 6 of their friends, and 2 Jounin that were respected in their shinobi fields. You sound more impressed by Sephiroth's tactics than anything, Shikamaru, said Choji, as he surprisingly saw Shikamaru nod his head in admitting that, and run a hand through his hair. It is troublesome to admit, Choji, but I do respect him in the ways of strategy, and I'm not the only one doing it either. That single mission is going to be studied for years to come by our clan, Jounin, and the Anbu themselves, knowing that as a masterpiece of strategic moves only a seasoned veteran like the Sandaime Hokage or one if not all 3 Sannin together could have conceived, in their prime, said Shikamaru, as he saw his teammates look at him shocked, and realized that things were getting out of control right now. Their sensei was supposed to be Sarutobi Asuma, but after the Sandaime died, the man had been grieving over the loss of his father, and needed time to himself for now. So with that said, Team 10 was being trained by a sickly Jounin named Gecko Hayate, who was skilled with a sword, and a rare one to have in the Leaf A that. Right now, the man was giving them a day off since he needed some bed rest due to his sickness being on one of its bad days, and was in no condition to teach them anything. With Team 7, come you guys. I keep on telling you teamwork is the key, said Kakashi, as he saw his team was struggling to get out of the funk they were in, and blamed it on their inability to bond. Unfortunately, Kakashi would not admit to himself that the problem for this inability to bond was Sasuke, and to a lesser extent, Sakura. The Uchiha was like a black hole wanting to suck everything towards him by force and follow his lead whether the action was right or wrong, with the consequences be damned. Sakura was no better, it seemed, as she followed through with whatever Sasuke wanted, and didn't care that the Uchiha was wrong. The only one that seemed competent in being a shinobi was Sai, as he would use the strength behind his skills to make up for the other 2, and their easy to spot weaknesses. It was a shame Sai's way of talking with people wasn't up to par with his shinobi skills. I don't need these 2. What I need is my own solo mission, said Sasuke, as he was angry about being on a team with a weak girl, and a pale weirdo that had no people skills. And a penis, said Sai, simply making both his teammates look at him angrily. What did you say to Sasuke-kun? Yelled Sakura, not liking what she just heard. That he doesn't have a penis. What? Am I incorrect? I thought from the way he has been acting indicated he didn't have one and was unable to pleasure himself, said Sai while looking at Kakashi currently shaking his head no. I am going to kill you, said Sasuke looking at Sai black angry eyes, and brought out a kunai to perform the intended act. Just because you don't have a penis to whack off with doesn't mean you're any less a man, much less a shinobi, Sasuke-kun, said Sai, making Kakashi's sweat drop while both Sasuke and Sakura were seething. Kami hates me, thought Kakashi, as he was forced to stop the death of his pale student, and keep his team intact. Hokage Tower, so you finally made a seal capable of stopping Sephiroth, said Tsunade, staring at her former teammate, seeing him look pretty smug knowing his skill was second only to his late student. Yes. It wasn't easy, but I did it, and I think it will work despite it being a prototype. It will temporarily poison his body long enough for either me or an Anbu team to subdue him before we bring him back to Konoha for trial, said Jiraiya, knowing that was what the Fire Daimyo wanted, and to further breathe fame into his country through a grand public trial with the infamous Namikaze Sephiroth being tried for war crimes. Had you and the Sandaime not lied to me, it wouldn't have come to this, said Tsunade, as she knew it was out of her hands, and into her old teammates on secret orders given by the Fire Daimyo himself. We did what we had to do, Tsunade. The boy was going to be Sephiroth regardless of our actions, said Jiraiya, knowing the prophecy had been at hand with the Kyuubi being thrown into the mix. You keep telling yourself that to make it easier to sleep at night, said Tsunade, as she saw bags under his eyes on occasion, and knew it wasn't from writing his books or even working on some seal to take down Sephiroth. Believe it or not, Tsunade-heim, it actually does help, said Jiraiya seriously, though he still saw the skeptical look on Tsunade's face. You know what to do, Jiraiya. Find Sephiroth, persuade him first to come back with you to Konoha, and only use that seal as a last resort. I don't care what the Fire Daimyo told you, I want my godson here in my office alive, and healthy enough to speak to me with clear coherent words coming out of his mouth that aren't slurred from whatever effects that seal of yours causes, said Tsunade, as she knew Jiraiya was loyal to the Leaf, but not even Tsunade would do half the stuff he did, and in the name of the greater good. No promises on the last part, Tsunade, said Jiraiya before he left with Tsunade now narrowing her eyes at the spot where he had been just standing. Like you ever did keep your promises with me, thought Tsunade, as she summoned Shizune to her office, and ordered her to bring in Ibiki for a private conversation. With Sephiroth, the infamous swordsman looked down from his position in the sky, hidden from view of those below, and did not like what he saw. Barely 30 minutes into his conversation with the bandaged girl, a group of young teens were sneaking towards the house with graffiti spraying can, and were about to vandalize the walls of the shack. They would have too, if not for a little intervention from Sephiroth, and Haku upon her return from the town with information to determine why the people were hostile. So after knocking the teens out, dropping them quickly off in town, and hanging them from a pole only in their underwear did the two individuals turn their attention to the task at hand. The girl's name was Isaribi and she was accused of being a horrible sea monster that had become the cause of ships crashing and the loss of loved ones of the town whose family members were sailors. They called her the Kaima, though they preferred to call the girl the more simpler names, and weren't afraid to attack when the opportunity to do so came to them. What bothered Sephiroth though was the fact this girl couldn't possibly be such a horrible monster like the people thought she was, as Isaribi didn't have the natural look a horrible monster has in their eyes, and it was not something that could be hidden from him either. If this girl was indeed a monster of the sea like the people claimed, then she was against her will, and that someone was commanding Isaribi to do such horrible things. Meaning she was a puppet, and where there is a puppet there is usually a puppeteer not far off pulling the strings. And where there are puppet strings, there is a trail leading to the puppeteer, thought Sephiroth, as he saw Isaribi leave her shack, and before looking around to see if she saw anyone. Sephiroth watched, as the girl's body began to change into some form of fish-like base transformation, and dive into the water before heading off to her destination. Descending to the ground, he waited a moment before Haku appeared, and reported her findings to him about when the last ship had sunk less than a week ago with another not scheduled to come around remotely near the area until next. So either Isaribi is going for a swim or, said Sephiroth turning to Haku smirking at her. She's going to meet her master, said Haku knowing that they had what they needed. Time to get changed Haku. We're going hunting, said Sephiroth, as his eyes flashed for a second with wave of power, and Haku shivered internally at the sight of it. Yes Sephiroth-sama, said Haku, as she quickly hid from his line of sight, and quickly changed into her shinobi attire. It was time to hunt the real monster behind Isaribi. With Jiraiya 2 days later, and you're sure about this? Said Jiraiya talking to the person, who was part of his spy network, and leaning behind the tree he was leaning on while hinged into a civilian bum. Yeah. 2 people in Sea Country arrived there not that long ago. Rumor has it, one of them have been asking about the resident sea monster they're said to be targeting ships, and the killing of sailors the beast has caused. 1 boy. 1 girl though the girl is said to be slightly older and very beautiful. Don't know the relationship between them though, said the spy while Jiraiya nodded his head in understanding. Have they showed any signs of leaving anytime soon? Said Jiraiya knowing how far he'd have to travel and that they might be gone by the time he arrived. Not from what I've gathered. They're staying in a small hotel in town. It only has 1 bedroom, said the spy making Jiraiya's eyes widen. So the relationship could be more than platonic, said Jiraiya out loud. Possibly, but then again the hotel they're staying at is small, and only has openings with 1 bedroom. Chances are, it's platonic, and one of them is sleeping in a chair, said the spy, but knew how Jiraiya thought, and was having some minor perverted thoughts in his head. Okay. I'll head there right away, said Jiraiya secretly paying his spy for the info before heading out. Now Jiraiya just had to pray the 2 were still there and his one-of-a-kind seal could take down or possibly weaken the one-winged angel of death. Rice Country Sound Village, and these reports are correct? Said Orochimaru of the Sannin and Trader of the Leaf reading the information given to him by a spy placed deeply into the inner workings of Konoha. From what Kabuto mentioned, they are correct, and that he apologizes for taking so long to tell you about the Sandaime's death. Konoha was on a heavy lockdown until Tsunade became the new Hokage, and even then she was having Konoha's security stepped up to much higher levels, said the sound shinobi before the Sannin's throne. I understand. Tsunade always thought the Sandaime was too soft in his old age when it came to security. It's only natural this would happen, though I am surprised she even took up the mantle after the expressed feelings I knew were held within her, said Orochimaru tapping his chin in thought. Senju Tsunade wasn't the first choice from my understanding. Jiraiya of the Sannin was chosen before her, but he turned it down, and is out hunting down the Sandaime's killer, said the sound shinobi seeing Orochimaru's eyes widen at that information. So the prophecy of Namikaze Sephiroth returning to this world was true. Such a person would prove to be the ultimate vessel if I could acquire him. Put a team together to find out where he is and offer him an invitation to have a private audience with me, said Orochimaru with the sound shinobi bowing his head and then leaving to complete his mission. All the while Orochimaru grinned at the thought of obtaining the ultimate being rumors made the swordsman out to be and using his new body to crush Akatsuki after testing it on Konoha. He would soon have his revenge twofold. Konoha Hospital 3 days later, Hinata knew she was going to have a hard time learning from Senju Tsunade, but to say she was a real slave drive was an understatement, and was like saying Sephiroth was the most skilled swordsman in history. Tsunade taught Hinata the basics, which the Hyuga girl herself got down quick enough, and then the more advanced stuff kicked into the mix. Not only that, but Tsunade had also told Hinata that she would be learning how to use the infamous super strength that made the Slug Princess so famous in battle, and mix it into the gentle fist style to cause even more damage. Hinata blushed at the comment Tsunade made about using it to help keep her future and possibly perverted husband in line by threatening to break his balls should the guy get out of line. Very good, Hinata. You're progressing well with learning chakra scalpels. Remember, this medical jutsu can be used to help, or hurt someone if used for that manner. You need incredible chakra control for either one, Hinata, so be careful when using this and practice chakra control daily to help with your training. You're good so far due to your training at such a young age required when it comes to mastering the Byakugan, but I won't let you slack off, and after this we're going to focus more on learning how to destroy a tree. Thank you, Tsunade-sama, said Hinata without stuttering, as she bowed her head since it had been one of the conditions of her training by the Hokage to stop stuttering, and had stomped it out within the second day of training. I'm really surprised your clan tried to stop me from teaching you, even after I explained your potential in the field, and that it would further create respect for the Hyuga clan in general, said Tsunade, as she saw Hinata look depressed at that, and felt sorry for the poor girl. There is talk of putting the cage bird seal on me by the clan elders, said Hinata, as she looked at her teacher with worry, and saw the angry look on Tsunade's face. Well, I know for a fact they can't. One of the laws of the village charter states that should the Hokage take an apprentice in any field they are a master and cannot be stopped by the apprentice's family or the clan they are from. You are a shinobi, Hinata. An adult in the eyes of the village laws, meaning you fall under my care and there is not a single thing those Bakas can do about it. They so much as even prepare the ink used for the cage bird seal. It will create problems so great that it may result in getting the damn thing banned from the Hyuga clan, and it would be their own fault. I wouldn't worry about such talk, Hinata, since it's most likely spoken to bring fear to you and bring the idea it will cause problems for me, said Tsunade, as she saw Hinata nod, and saw Shizune enter the room with a concerned look on her face. Tsunade-sama, we have a problem, said Shizune, that made the Hokage's face sport a frown. What's the problem, Shizune? Said Tsunade, as she left the room to talk to Shizune, and the younger woman handed her a piece of parchment found in the Sandaime's files. The Uchiha massacre is not what everyone thinks it was, said Shizune, as she saw the Hokage's face light up with fury, and saw the list of signatures on the order given to Itachi to kill the Uchiha clan on ground of rebelling against Konoha. One of them was the Sandaime along with Danzo and the 2 shinobi council members that were the late Sandaime's advisors that became her advisors. Anything else? Said Tsunade, seeing Shizune nod and then hand her a journal written by the 3rd Hokage himself. I found this sealed away in the Sandaime's vault in your office. And when I mean sealed with complex seals, and meant to hurt anyone with authorization access just below mine, said Shizune, knowing only one person with such skills in the sealing arts and he was out of the village. I see. Leave this with me. It's high time I learned what dirty little secrets my old sensei has and see to it that they are handled in proper fashion, said Tsunade, as she knew her late sensei would have some dirty secrets in here aside from what he did to her godson, and needed to know just how many of them there were. Land of Sea, this is the cave she went in, said Haku, as she could detect multiple beings within the area, and not all of them were completely human. Come, Haku. Let's see what Isaribi's master is like, said Sephiroth, as the two had been watching the girl's actions the entire time, and determined that Isaribi herself was not the evil monster the people of this land made her out to be. Her master was the real monster. A mad scientist by the name of Amachi, and kidnapped several citizens before performing mad experiments on them. In Sephiroth's mind, the man reminded him of another mad scientist named Hojo, and the mere remembrance of the man that had kept Genova imprisoned the way she was had caused Sephiroth's blood to boil within his body. Amachi was a shadowy shell of a carbon copy of Hojo, and it was time the man just what he deserved, which in Sephiroth's mind was a long overdue one-way trip to a place that was argued to exist by many in the ways of science, and that place was hell. You stupid bitch. I created you, and what I can create I can destroy, said a man, who was clearly Amachi, and he didn't look pleased with Isaribi. Probably because Isaribi didn't sink the newest ship that had the courage to sail near the land of sea and had come back demanding the cure from him now before threatening to tell the people the truth about why she had done those horrible things in the past. I don't care anymore. I'd rather be destroyed than serve scum like you. I bet you don't even have a cure for my condition, said Isaribi accused, and to her slight surprise the man was laughing hysterically. A cure? Why would I want to cure the likes of you? You're just a freak. A monster that I created in the name of science to further the ways of the shinobi, and for a brief time you were a nice leap forward in my plans. Unfortunately, Orochimaru-sama lost interest in what I was doing, and ended my funding for these projects. Now you are just a pawn to play, and I am the player using you in my scheme to perfect my research so that my other more successful experiments can take revenge on the Sannin, said Amachi, as he saw Isaribi look at him in shock and anger at his words. Bastard. When the people in town hear what you've done they will, said Isaribi, but was quickly silenced by a backhanded slap to her face, and looked at the smiling doctor with surprise. You are going to tell them? The people that hate, shun, and attack you whenever they see you? The one who's sunk ships, killed sailors, and brought misery to their lives in the process? Who would believe you? No one. Face it, my dear, you are stuck with me because I'm the only one willing to tolerate your existence, and give you a purpose, said Amachi, seeing the girl look ready to cry with angry eyes. Don't be so sure, said Sephiroth, as he stepped out of the shadows of the cave, and Haku stayed in them. Who are you? How did you find this lab? Said Amachi, frowning at Sephiroth. I found this place by following her. She had a certain traveling pattern and was always cautious when seeking you out for orders. As to who I am your destroyer, said Sephiroth, as he brought out Masamune, and began walking towards Amachi. I don't know who or what you are, but one thing you are certainly not, is my destroyer, and my pets are going to shred your body to pieces, said Amachi, as he hit a switch, and an alarm went out with the sound of angry hungry animals howling in a nearby room. Oh no, said Isaribi, as she had seen the room, and knew what was in there. Oh yes. My chimeras were going to be used to destroy Orochimaru and that bitch of student Anko after the Sannin abandoned this place for greener pastures, said Amachi, as he took off running down another passageway, and laughing in the process. Fool. Haku, pursue him while I deal with the chimeras. Don't let down your guard for a moment. I sense something is off with our mad scientist, said Sephiroth, as he walked towards the sounds of animals coming his way, and Haku followed the path Amachi had gone. Wait. What about me? Said Isaribi, seeing the boy possibly a few years younger than her walking towards what she thought would be his doom. After today, Isaribi-san, you are free to do whatever it is you want in life. Go anywhere that you want. My advice to you though is to seek someone out that can help cure your current condition, since it's clear that it's not natural, said Sephiroth before turning to see the army of Chimera coming at him with the intent to rip his body to pieces. Not even seeing the girl nod her head before leaving, the one-winged angel of death moved swiftly to remove these monstrosities from his presence, and seek out his female comrade hunting down the not-so-good scientist. With Jiraiya, you're sure? You saw them walking around? Said Jiraiya, holding a picture of Haku given to him in sketch artist rendering Hinata gave of her and one of Sephiroth to a man in the small hotel. Yeah. The girl was something. If I was just 30 years younger. Not that I could get close enough if I tried. Not with the younger boy beside her though, he looked more man than boy. Given those eyes of his, said the man at the desk seeing the pictures. What do you mean? Said Jiraiya curiously. I've seen a lot of people traveling through here during my time in this land. I've seen all kinds of eyes from young to old of all different colors. But these eyes, they scare me to no end. They're the eyes of a killer. Someone who's seen death, like he could bring it down upon people like he was an agent of the Shinigami himself, and not feel regret from such brutality. It was in his walk too. He barely ever spoke when I saw him, but when the kid did, it was only to the girl in this sketch, and she seemed to enjoy hearing his voice, said the man, seeing Jiraiya nod in understanding. What room are they in? Said Jiraiya, knowing he could set an ambush for the two when they got back. They checked out. Paid the amount owed and left. I think they're leaving later today, said the man, not knowing why Jiraiya was frowning in anger since the two had done nothing wrong as far as he could tell. Hell, they gave a nice tip for good service, and acted like ideal customers. Thank you, said Jiraiya, as he cursed himself for getting here too late, and only took comfort in the notion that he was close tracking the boy down. An explosion rocked the area around him and forced Jiraiya to run outside to see another explosion of water near the town occur before a figure went flying towards it. Jiraiya had to jump out of the way of being hit by the body thrown in his direction and looked to see it was the bloody dying form of a man-like fish. Wait. Man-like fish? What the hell? That was what the people around him seeing the man thought too, as they thought the girl was the monster of the sea, and yet this was not same person they had tried to hurt a week ago. In fact, their usual attempts at scaring the bandaged girl right out of their small semi-poor country had been thwarted ever since last week started, and it all coincided with the silver-haired boy with that beautiful girl he was with. The same silver-haired boy with the one angelic wing that was a shade of pure white, but as he descended from the sky could see it turning a darker shade until it was gray, and he was not happy if the look on his face was any indication. The moment he touched down on the ground, a masked figure was beside him, and was unreadable to the people. Even Jiraiya, who knew it was the girl named Haku, had no way of knowing what was going on inside the female ice user's head, or see what her face was like behind the mask. People of Sea Country, I give you your so-called Kaima, and his name is Amachi. He has been the one causing you pain, suffering, and death to your land in the name of his experiments with one of them he tested on himself. The girl Isaribi you have tormented for being this monster was actually his past experiment, who he promised to cure her in return for sinking ships, and killing sailors while some were captured to be experimented on. It was a promise he never intended to keep. In fact, Amachi would have killed her, dissected her body, and then continued with his experimentations on helpless people with you all being none the wiser, said Sephiroth, as he saw the people look at him in shock, and then at the fish man on the ground slowly dying before them. Where is Isaribi? Said someone feeling guilty for hating the girl for this. She's free from his control. She's safe to go wherever her heart desires, said Sephiroth cryptically, not wanting the people to seek her out. What about his experiments? Said Jiraiya, deciding to make his presence felt, and saw Sephiroth look at him for a moment. They were mindless beasts with different parts of animals put together called chimera for the purpose of being a mindless army. They are all dead, said Sephiroth, who didn't give away any emotions when seeing Jiraiya, and simply focused on the crowd at hand. Will the girl come back here to exact revenge? Said another person worriedly. Of what she wants, I cannot answer you, but I do know that all Isaribi wants is to live a normal life, and I advised her before she left to seek out someone with the ability to help, said Sephiroth, seeing the people let out a sigh of relief. If you see her again, could you tell Isaribi we're sorry, and that we'd like to make it up to her if she came back? Said a woman with guilt on her face. I will tell her, but should she come back here, I expect you all to apologize yourselves regardless if I've done it for you, or not, since this was your crime, said Sephiroth, as he turned away from the group, and Haku following while being slightly behind him while they walked, knowing who was there during that little moment of answering questions. Haku was never going to give Jiraiya of the Sannin the opening he needed, and had every intention of being her master's shield should the man try something. Sephiroth, said Jiraiya, as he appeared in front of the swordsman, and Haku after they were a safe distance from the town. Jiraiya of the Sannin. To what do I owe this not so great honor of being in your slimy presence? Said Sephiroth with sarcasm in his voice. I'm under orders by the 5th Hokage Senju Tsunade to bring you back to the Leaf, and if necessary subdue you for trial on criminal charges against humanity, said Jiraiya, as he saw Haku immediately bring out senbone needles, and prepared for battle before Sephiroth raised his hand slightly to tell his bodyguard to stay her hand. So my godmother is the new Hokage. Does she know why I killed the Sandaime? Does she know why I am this way? That 3 people in my life set things in motion to force me into submission? Said Sephiroth, seeing Jiraiya scowl at him. She knows why. Kind of hard not to after the academy teacher told everyone on your orders, said Jiraiya, as he saw Sephiroth smirk at him, and let out a chuckle that told the Sannin the boy was clearly amused. My godmother had a right to know. Better to hear the truth than listen to someone who prefers to lie about what things that should not be lied about, said Sephiroth, knowing that Jiraiya knew what he was referring to. How do you know Tsunade is your godmother? Said Jiraiya curiously. A part of my mother was sealed inside of me with the Kyuubi. After I became what you see now, some of her memories still remained within me, and one of them was when she asked Tsunade to be my godmother. My mother had also asked you to be my godfather too, said Sephiroth, seeing the man stiffen at that. I lied to her because it was for the greater good. Tsunade had always wanted a child just like Kushina, and you were the closest thing to it after Kushina died. Had she known of your existence, you would have been taken away from the Leaf to grow to become what you are now, and the prophecy would have occurred sooner than later, said Jiraiya, with Sephiroth scoffing at him. The prophecy was going to happen with or without the body of Uzumaki Naruto. All you did was set things in motion for this body to become my way back to this world. If you truly feared the prophecy like you claim, Then you wouldn't have trained my father, and stopped him from becoming what he was before the QB attacked, said Sephiroth, seeing Jiraiya seething at his words. Minato wasn't the child of prophecy, said Jiraiya, getting angry at the silver-haired boy. But you suspected any child he had could be the prophesized one regardless. Why not kill him to prevent it altogether? What is it about my father that made you not have the heart to destroy or cripple him like you did me? Said Sephiroth, seeing Jiraiya's facial muscles twitch slightly with sweat running down his forehead. He was your son, said Haku simply, while Jiraiya's eyes narrowed slightly with jaw slightly clenching. Ah, I see. The final piece is finally put together. What was he to you then? Illegitimate? Did you even know? No doubt the woman you were with for one night was Namikaze, but you never married due to wanting my godmother like everyone claims you did, and simply forgot about him until it became time for you to become a Jounin sensei. By then, he had grown strong, and you no doubt discovered my father was your son somehow. You didn't have the heart to kill him after discovering the prophecy of the Namikaze clan, since he was your own flesh and blood. So you decided to keep an eye on him instead, just in case, but then saw he wasn't the chosen child of prophecy, and left it alone until my mother told him that she was pregnant, said Sephiroth, seeing his godfather and at the same time his grandfather look at him with anger. Shut up. A monster like you would never understand what it means to be in love, said Jiraiya in a dangerous voice. Are you so sure? You forget I have my memories from my time in this world that I lived in centuries ago. I knew what it was like to love another. My mother then was not mine truly by blood, but I had hers in me all the same, and I became worthy of being called the son of Genova after hearing her cries of pain. I saw her in agony. She commanded me to smite those that were responsible for the crimes against her person, and like any good son that loves their mother, I obeyed. It's you, Jiraiya of the Sannin, who doesn't understand, and know what it means to love another with all your soul, said Sephiroth, seeing Jiraiya scowl deepen. Are you saying if I truly loved my family, then this wouldn't have happened, and the prophecy wouldn't have been fulfilled? Said Jiraiya, not understanding Sephiroth's words. As I told you before, the prophecy was going to happen whether it was using the body of Uzumaki Naruto, or not, due to your stupidity. It was your lust for the flesh that sired my father. Not love for the person or the soul behind it. Had you truly known love, Jiraiya of the Sannin, then Tsunade would have raised me, and the Leaf would have had a powerful ally to call their own, instead of the monster they created out of their own arrogance, said Sephiroth, seeing Jiraiya shake his head in disbelief. I don't believe that, said Jiraiya simply. No, you wouldn't believe me, would you? After all, I am just a monster, and a monster shouldn't know how to love another. Isn't that what you believe? Said Sephiroth, seeing the Sannin's hands become fists and the Sannin not speaking a word. The silence Jiraiya gave spoke volumes to Sephiroth though. Sephiroth-sama, we should leave, said Haku, as she didn't want to be in the Sannin's presence anymore, and knew that her master didn't want to be near him either. Agreed. This is my one warning to you, Jiraiya, do not come after me again, or I will crush you regardless of our blood ties, said Sephiroth before taking to the air with his arm around Haku's waist, and they ascended into the sky. Spare me your warnings. You're no family of mine, monster. The next time we meet, I will stop you, and avenge my sensei, said Jiraiya angrily. We'll see, said Sephiroth, were his only ominous words to Jiraiya before flying off with Haku away from the land of sea. You could have killed him if you desired, Sephiroth-sama, said Haku, wondering why he didn't. It's too early to be killing the likes of him. The setting isn't right. But it will be, very soon, said Sephiroth, as he knew from what they overheard from Amachi's conversation with Isaribi earlier was that their next destination would be less welcome, and filled with more danger. He was going to a snake's lair, and the snake's name was Orochimaru. Chapter 5 Politics. Naruto walked through Rice Country with Haku by his side, as he headed for the one place that made sense for someone like Orochimaru to hide, and yet stay close to the Leaf should the opportunity to strike against it would become available. Out of all the different countries surrounding the Land of Fire, only Rice Country was without a shinobi village, and was recently neutral until the announcement of a small one being formed. Sephiroth smirked, as he remembered what Iruka mentioned, the history of the shinobi villages, how the feudal lords funding them had set up international rules in terms of the founding of a shinobi village, and how foreign shinobi entering another village for the Chunin exams were given temporary immunity. Whether it was the Jounin Sensei sponsoring their Jinan team or the Jinan teams performing for their respected shinobi village, it was known that unless fights were in an official setting approved by all parties involved, there would be no attacks on either side, and to violate them would bring about the full wrath of the provoked country itself. It was one of the reasons why the people in Konoha felt safe when the Chunin exams were held in the Leaf, knowing that the Fire Daimyo and his armies would help them. It was also why all the minor villages were hesitant to send their sometime overeager Jinan teams to places like Konoha. Having one of the strongest shinobi villages coming after you was one thing, but the military might of the Fire Daimyo's samurai was something else entirely, and no one wanted to face off against that. You really think we can get an audience with Orochimaru of the Sannin here in Rice Country? Said Haku, as she had first heard of the rumors of where the man was hiding mere days before she first met Sephiroth, but she felt the rumors had a sliver of truth in them, and should be checked out just in case they were accurate. I know we will, Haku. Whether Orochimaru is here in this place or not doesn't matter, since he will want to find me too. Still, be on your guard at all times, and keep your eyes open for any attacks aimed at us. Given your bloodline limit, Haku, you are much of a target as I am when it comes to the Sannin if the rumors for why he left the leaf are true, and he will no doubt seek to claim your power for his own devices, said Sephiroth, now sensing killer intent rising within Haku, knowing that she would rather die than be the snake Sannin's plaything. If he looks at me wrong, I'll destroy him, said Haku with conviction, and Sephiroth had no doubt she would. Stopping suddenly, the two saw themselves quickly surrounded by sound shinobi on all sides, and had weapons drawn for battle. After what appeared to be a long standoff with them, Sephiroth turned his head slightly to see a grayish white-haired boy with glasses walk into the clearing with a smile on his face, and bowed his head at them. Welcome to Rice Country and the territory that is Sound Village. My name is Kabuto. I have been ordered to take you to Orochimaru-sama. He is most interested in meeting you both, said Kabuto, as he motioned for the shinobi around him to stand down, and then motioned for his two guests to follow him. Should we be forced to fight, hold nothing back, show no mercy, and crush all that stand against you, said Sephiroth in a whisper, with Haku nodding silently. Orochimaru's lair, so you're the one that killed the Sandaime Hokage. I must say a mere child killing a cage is most impressive, said Orochimaru, looking down at the swordsman from his dramatic throne in the room with his forces filling the room and his bodyguards were beside his throne. Hardly. Considering my heritage, did you really expect anything less from a namikaze, or the reincarnation of its founder? Said Sephiroth, as he saw the Sannin smile at him, and it sickened the one-winged angel. No. I suppose not. You met my expectations quite well. Unlike my old sensei, I don't like to mess with prophecies, and attempt to stop them, said Orochimaru before looking at Haku with calculating eyes. Yes. Your former teammate Jiraiya made the same mistake your sensei did too, but I have yet had the time to slay him, and spill his blood over all of Fire Country. I actually came here to offer a small proposal. If you're interested, that is? Said Sephiroth, seeing Orochimaru's eyes turn back to him like he planned so they wouldn't wander to Haku. Really? And what do you have to offer me that I could want? Said Orochimaru with narrowed eyes. My help in the Leaf's destruction. Isn't that why you are amassing forces in a country that neighbors the Land of Fire right under the Leaf's very nose? Said Sephiroth, seeing Orochimaru's eyes widen in surprise and then narrowed dangerously. I could order my men to kill you right now for releasing that information so casually to my face, said Orochimaru, seeing his four slowly drawing weapons to fight his guests. Then you would be ordering them to their death, and your plans to crush Konoha would die with them, along with you. Amachi learned the hard way that opposing me is not in the best interest of one's health, said Sephiroth coldly, as he let his power consume the room, and made everyone around him freeze under its influence. Such incredible power, I must have it. But not now. Not until he has his guard down. And what did he mean by Amachi? I haven't seen him in a short while with all of his aquatic experiments, thought Orochimaru, as he raised a hand to tell Sephiroth to stop, and found that it took considerable effort on his part to make the motion. I can either be your enemy or I can be your ally. Choose wisely, said Sephiroth, as he saw Orochimaru calculating the odds in his head at having him as an enemy, and then as an ally. It didn't take a genius to know what the Sannin chose. I choose to have you as an ally, Namikaze Sephiroth, and welcome you to my village, said Orochimaru, with his forces putting away their weapons and leaving the room. You chose wisely, said Sephiroth, as he left with Haku right beside him, and decided to find them a place to stay for a short time. Is this wise, Orochimaru-sama? Word will surely spread of his presence here in Sound, and so many will seek to hunt him down, said Kabuto, as he saw Orochimaru smile at him, and saw the Sannin was planning something. Don't worry, Kabuto. This base is only temporary. We have hundreds of them scattered throughout the different lands of the elemental countries. Besides, this alliance will only last until the end of Konoha's destruction, and by then I will have everything I desire in the end, said Orochimaru, smiling deviously at how everything he wanted would be as after the leaf fell. Including a new vessel to call his own. Konoha Hokage's office. I told you to persuade my godson to come home peacefully so we could talk to him in a reconciling manner, Jiraiya. What part of that order don't you understand? Said Tsunade, as she was pissed at Jiraiya's actions, and it was clear the Sannin in front of her didn't care. Those were your orders, Tsunade. The fire daimyos are higher up and he told me to do what needed to be done to take down Sephiroth. No talks. No persuasion. Just take him down and take him alive if possible for trial. That's it, said Jiraiya, seeing Tsunade was not pleased with his answer and looked ready to sock him one right in the face. The man only wants to posture and puff out his chest. The trial would be for show only and we both know it, said Tsunade, as she didn't want that, but saw Jiraiya didn't care, and knew that the fire daimyo didn't either with what she wanted for her godson. Their godson when she thought about it, but Tsunade doubted Jiraiya actually wanted the position, and didn't want any part of the responsibilities the title brought. That's for when Sephiroth is taken down. That's politics. Shinobi don't handle that part of the world, Tsunade. You know that. I know that. Even Sensei knew that even though he was an expert in it, said Jiraiya, seeing Tsunade narrow her eyes at him. That's what sickened me the most about him right now. The older Sensei got, the less of a shinobi, and more of a politician he became. Politicians can't lead shinobi, Jiraiya. Trying to blend the two is a dangerous combination. It was why my grandfather had made laws to keep certain bodies of government from within the leaf from taking too much power, and our sensei chose to weaken during his old age because he couldn't handle the weight, though tried in order to recapture some form of glory, said Tsunade, seeing Jiraiya not meeting her eyes, and she knew that he knew she was right. Though his pride wouldn't let him admit it. Why are you bringing this up about our sensei now, Tsunade? This isn't like you, said Jiraiya before Tsunade revealed leather paper filled book that the Sannin recognized was their sensei's journal. This is why I'm bringing it up. Sensei wanted to make sure everything he ever did in this world was recorded as a just-in-case contingency should something happen to him, and didn't want certain people to think they could get away with things in their life. I found some very interesting chapters going back quite a ways, including what really happened the night of the Uchiha massacre, and how a certain Sannin talked him into using Itachi later to be his spy for a certain organization hunting down the nine-tailed beasts. Care to explain why the true reason behind the loss of the Uchiha clan wasn't brought to light, and give me one good reason why I shouldn't expose it now? Said Tsunade, seeing Jiraiya scoffing at her like she was an idiot. Damn it, Tsunade. You know full well the problems that would arise from such a thing. The Uchiha clan betraying Konoha would have made the leaf look so weak. How would Konoha's enemies react when they learn we can't trust our own clans? They'd swarm on us like sharks smelling blood in the water. The only reason they didn't was because the fire daimyo pledged to support us temporarily until the village stabilized from the loss of the clan, said Jiraiya, seeing Tsunade scowl at him. I highly doubt the fire daimyo would do any less for us if he knew they helped betray us more than once to our enemies. They've sabotaged missions, leaked information to our enemies about our informants in their territory, and they helped destroy the treaty with Kumo nearly a decade ago. The only reason Kumo didn't demand more than the body of Hyuga Heihachi or go to war was because Sensei told them about the prophecy and that he would make it happen if they didn't back off, said Tsunade, seeing Jiraiya letting out a sigh. What do you want me to say, Tsunade? We had to choose the lesser of two evils on both counts. The village needs to survive no matter what, and if that means sweeping up certain sins under the rug, then so be it, said Jiraiya, being an expert in the cloak and dagger ways of being a shinobi than Tsunade was. So damn the consequences if innocent people get hurt in the process. Is that it? Said Tsunade, seeing Jiraiya shrug. That's the way of politics in the elemental countries, Tsunade. We have to do the dirty work and the people above us spin it in a way that suits everyone's best interests, said Jiraiya, knowing that was how things were done and that it was Tsunade's fault for being out of the game long enough to embrace such naive line of thinking. Get out. Get out before I smash my fist through your skull and damn the consequences of my actions, said Tsunade, as she would have too had Jiraiya not seen the look on her face, and left before acting on the impulse. Fire Daimyo's palace several weeks later. So the Hokage isn't happy with my orders to you, said the fire daimyo, walking with Jiraiya through the palace hallway. Sadly no. Tsunade has always wanted to have a child, but the loss of her lover Dan kind of ended that possible life in being a mother, and only her godson remains in terms of having any parental ties to this world, said Jiraiya, as he saw the fire daimyo shake his head in disappointment, and it was clear he disapproved of Tsunade's way of thinking. I may have to consider removing her from the position as Hokage if this continues, said the fire daimyo, as she knew it was only done in extreme cases when a feudal lord has a different view of a cage, and the cage won't bend to the feudal lord's wishes when the situation warrants it. Don't give up on her yet. She just needs to see Sephiroth in action, and when Tsunade does, her whole perception of him will change, said Jiraiya, as he knew that while his former teammate had a difference of opinion of things, she was still a good Hokage, and the Leaf needed her in charge. I hope you're right, Jiraiya. Keep trying to track that monster down. I want him brought to me alive, but if you have to kill him, then do it, and bring back his head so I can have it as a trophy to further instill fear in my enemies. If you can't, said the Fire Daimyo with his warning to the Sannin clear as day in his voice. Sound Village at the moment, you want me to lead this weak Shin'an team into Konoha for the Chunin exams? Said Sephiroth with Haku beside him looking at the trio, seeing them glare at his person for the insult. Yes. I was originally going to do it in your place, but with Sarutobi-sensei dead, it will be more difficult to escape Tsunade's much more keen eyes, and she knows what I look like easily if enough of my features are showing. I have another means to get into the Leaf undetected, but you being there would certainly help secure my entry into the village with all eyes on you, and your new Shin'an team, said Orochimaru, as he knew that with everyone focusing on Sephiroth being in the Leaf for the Chunin exams, it would help mask his plans for the invasion, and keep Tsunade's eyes off of him. So I take the heat while you enter Konoha without getting burned, said Sephiroth, as he sensed Orochimaru would do something like this, and didn't really have a problem with the plan. If anything, the one-winged angel preferred it, and would have even suggested such a move. It's the only true way I can let my dream of destroying the Leaf become a reality, said Orochimaru, as he studied Sephiroth's reaction to his plan, and found the unreadable face of the swordsman to be even more difficult to read than Itachi was when in the Akatsuki organization. I know it is Orochimaru-san, but you must understand that, given your nature to betray people, I have to be sure you don't sell me out, and for your own personal gains. Such actions aimed at my person can have some serious consequences, said Sephiroth before leaving the room, but not before turning to the sound team, and blasting them with killer intent to make them understand just how beyond their level he really was. Their faces were paler than Orochimaru before he left the room. I do not trust him, said Haku when they reached their small home, as she saw Sephiroth smirk, and wondered what was going on inside his head. I know you don't. I don't either. How is Kimimaro doing? Said Sephiroth, as he found out about her brief run-in with the albino Kaguya when first traveling with Zabuza, and how the two were very much alike when it came to pain. Not well. He's coughing up blood more and more. I think it's a rare disease from his clan created due to the environment of water country. It's a shame Kimimaro has it. He was considered the strongest of his clan before they were destroyed. From what I learned of his past, they even sealed him up in fear of his power, and would only let him on certain occasions to engage in heavy battles, said Haku, as she saw him scowl, and knew it was because Kimimaro was a lot like him too. Being treated like some animal. Told when to heal, to beg, and to fight when the master commands you to, only for that master to lock you away in a cage until it was time to be used again. He needs a medic beyond the one here if Kabuto himself can't heal what's slowly killing him. He needs Senju Tsunade, said Sephiroth, as he saw Haku look at him with a frown despite the mask she wore, and sensed her confusion. Couldn't you heal him, Sephiroth-sama? Said Haku, knowing he had the power to save lives along with taking them. I could, but there is always the risk of Kimimaro still being loyal to Orochimaru after using my powers to heal him, and our albino friend still needs to shift his loyalties away from the snake before that happens, said Sephiroth, knowing how devoted the Kaguya was to Orochimaru. I understand, at least I think I do, said Haku, as she wanted to learn from Sephiroth, and was finding it difficult to see what he did despite her training. Don't worry yourself, Haku. In time, you will be able to keep up with me, and may even foresee my plans before they're even finalized. Like Hyuga Hinata, I see a lot of potential in you, and will try to bring it out, said Sephiroth, as he had been spending time with the girl in terms of taijutsu due to Haku's reliance on her speed and bloodline limit to help win battles. However, her taijutsu was average at best, and knew that there were people out in the world capable of removing Haku's strength with their own abilities. When do we leave for Konoha? Said Haku while trying to keep her blush down despite the mask covering it. 1 week from now. In the off chance we are pinned down in some kind of ambush, I want you to flee, and find Zabuza, said Sephiroth, seeing the girl freezing in place before rushing in front of him and pulling her mask off. No. I won't. I'll die defending you, said Haku, as she wanted Sephiroth to see just how much his influence affected her, and how deep her loyalties lied with him. No, you won't, Haku. I will not let them capture you, put you on trial, and then sentence you into a life of hell where they will no doubt force you to breed them a child to turn into their toy. In the event of my capture or death, I want you to find Zabuza, and stay with him where it will be safe, said Sephiroth, seeing Haku shake her head once again in protest. Please don't ask me of that, Sephiroth-sama. How can I ever be a tool worthy of your greatness if you cast me aside knowing my skills could change the outcome? Said Haku, as she hugged him now, crying into his shirt, and listened to his heart beating. One of the rare problems in being a master tactician is sometimes you foresee your own destruction regardless of victory gained in the end, said Sephiroth before slowly putting a hand on her head and gently petting it, though for what reason he did was boggling his mind. Then I want to fall in battle with you. To achieve my purpose, said Haku, as she held on even tighter, and heard him chuckle. My dear girl, your purpose in life is not to die, but rather to live, and witness all that you can, so the story of your experiences with me lives on until my end, said Sephiroth while Haku shook her head in his chest with denial and continued to sob. I will not let your story end so quickly, Sephiroth-sama, said Haku, hearing the sound of his heartbeat again while trying to burn the sound of it into her mind so it wouldn't be forgotten. Nor will I let it end, Haku. Come now, it's time to get some sleep. Are you sure you don't want your own bed? Said Sephiroth, seeing Haku blush knowing her answer, but still had to ask, and knew why she didn't want one. Aside from the occasional night terrors that would spring up in her sleep from time to time. No. The bed I have now is fine, said Haku meekly, as she cherished her time in bed with Sephiroth, finding his presence surprisingly soothing when they slept, and the night terrors being rare now with him beside her person. Just checking, said Sephiroth simply. Konoha. 1 week later, the Leaf was busy with anticipation of the Chunin exams, as word spread of the Rookie 9, and Mito Guy's team being sent to participate in the rank advancing event. Many held high expectations for Guy's team and even Team 8 after surviving the battle with the one-winged Angel of Death, with the story of their mission to Wave Country becoming legendary. They exaggerated with how they faced Sephiroth in a great battle that shook the land and made the sky rumble from their intense fight for survival against their foe. Do they really need make the story of that mission more inflamed than it already is? It's like they think such theatric tales will bring fear to the hearts of those traveling here for the exams, said Tenten, as she really didn't mind simple praises from people, but this was getting ridiculous, and would complain more if it wasn't for the increased business their shop was getting. I agree. Some of the clan elders have been pressuring my uncle to remove the cage bird seal on my head and to place it on Hinata-sama's, in the belief my potential has long since surpassed hers regardless of Hokage-sama's training, said Neji, as he had spent a certain amount of time in his cousin's presence partially on the clan elder's orders, and observed Hinata's training regiment while talking to her about things not related to things not pertaining to shinobi. Unbelievable. Your cousin gets an honor countless others would kill for, and they want to do that to her. I don't know what's worse. Her getting possibly being branded with the seal, or the fact they wanted to keep Hinata-san under their thumb regardless if she learns Tsunade's skills that will never be used in the process? Said Tenten, as she hated that seal on Neji's head, and the thought of it being used on a fellow female shinobi made her blood boil. I agree, thought Neji before he froze suddenly, as a chill went up his spine, the hairs on the back of his head stood on end, and the unmistakable energy signature of Namikaze Sephiroth was felt by his keen senses. Tenten sensed it too, as she reached for one of the many weapons in her possession, and looked around for their foe that was clearly nearby. Neji found him first, however, due to his Byakugan being active, and it was clear by the look on his face that he knew where the swordsman was at the moment. Where is he, Neji? Said Tenten, as she looked around, and wished Lee was here to give them an extra pair of eyes. He's at the academy. Along with a girl wearing a mask and shinobi outfit. They seem to be talking to what appear to be a trio of Jinan from a village I don't recognize from the symbol of their headbands, said Neji before his eyes widened and began rushing towards the academy. Neji, wait up. What's the rush? Said Tenten, surprised that her teammate could move this fast. It's Hinata-sama. She's walking there with her Jinan team and Jounin sensei. She will see him in less than 2 minutes, said Neji, as he didn't know if Sephiroth would strike down his cousin this time around, or what his intentions were should the two meet. Personally, Neji didn't want to know, and didn't want to see it happen. Crap, said Tenten, as she hurried along with him to the Shinobi Academy, and hoped their third teammate was there waiting for them. They were going to need all of his flames of youth today. Konoha Shinobi Academy, 3rd floor, do you three know what needs to be done? Said Sephiroth, looking at the trio with eyes filled with a serious intensity that spoke of no room for failure to do anything else but Tobian, and knowing the price that would be paid if they didn't accept that. Yes, Sephiroth-sama, said the trio at the same time, knowing their orders stood from what Orochimaru told them, though Sephiroth managed to alter them should the plan for the termination of Uchiha Sasuke not go as planned. Good. The first part of this exam will be the hardest. Survive this and you will have the means to complete the mission, said Sephiroth, as he wore a Sound Village headband on his forehead, and had his papers brought with him that had him down as being the Jounin Sensei of these three. Granted, the title of Jounin Sensei was just a formality than anything, but he did teach them some things that Orochimaru didn't during the short time they were his, and that involved using their heads more than the toys the Sannin gave them from the start. The mind was the most powerful weapon the human body possessed, and Sephiroth himself had proven that time and again in the past. In truth, all the Sound Team needed was patience, and not letting their individual as well as group pride get in the way of things. He beat that quite literally into their heads, since Orochimaru gave them to him with Haku's help and tested them by pushing all three to them to the brink of nearly losing their minds. "We understand, Sephiroth-sama," said the trio again, acting as one in speaking before they left for the room behind them, knowing that they were truly ready thanks to their teacher. "You make a good teacher, Sephiroth-sama," said Haku, seeing Sephiroth himself looking at the door shutting behind his Jounin team with a faraway look on his face. "They could become great shinobi one day. Not like you, of course, but certainly Jounin level, and could be quite devastating in the right hands. It's a pity Orochimaru sees them being used only for the sake of being pawns in this game against Konoha," said Sephiroth before turning around to head for the room where all Jounins were allowed to congregate regardless of what village they were from. By now, word will reach the 5th Hokage of his return to the Leaf with the Jounin team from Sound, and wished to seek an audience with him. Before that happened though, the swordsman wanted to see which shinobi of the Leaf that were Jounin senseis had signed up their teams for this little event, and make a note of who could be a threat during this exam. Even though pawns could never become players during a game, Sephiroth always felt they could become more than their current rank if played just right, and he so wanted to see his team to shine their brightest before Orochimaru burned them out. Of course, such thoughts on the matter were abruptly halted when he along with Haku had turned the corner to find Jounin Team 8, and their Jounin Sensei Yuhi Kurenai of Konoha stopping mere seconds from colliding with them. Instantly Kurenai leapt back, as did Shino, and Kiba with Akamaru growling fiercely at the swordsman. Haku for her part drew senbone needles and was prepared to defend her master from these weak fools. What neither side counted on was Hinata was standing right in front of Sephiroth, looking him right in the eyes, and the one-winged angel looking back into hers. The Hyuga girl knew she was doing a full-body blush from being so close to him, as she always did long before Sephiroth became Sephiroth, and yet she couldn't bring up the mental command within her brain to tell the legs she possessed to back up away from him. "Hinata, move away from him," said Kurenai, as she feared for her student's life, and knew any hope of stopping Sephiroth from capturing Hinata was slim to none right now. "Hello Hyuga Hinata. You honor me again by gracing my presence with your own in such a short time since the last moment we had together back in Wave Country," said Sephiroth, as he sensed killer intent from Haku rising at his close proximity with Hinata, and his words to the Hyuga girl. Thank you Namikaze Sephiroth. What brings you to Konoha?" said Hinata, trying to be respectful to him while seeing the headband on his forehead. "The Chunin exams actually. My team is participating and I just saw them off." "You're here to participate in the exams too, I hope?" said Sephiroth, seeing Hinata nod while he also sensed her teammates not liking the close proximity they were in. "Why yes," said Hinata truthfully, despite knowing Kurenai sensei would disapprove of her admitting it. Then again, denying it would be to lie, and liars never had good fortune when within an arm's reach of Sephiroth. "Good. You and your team will go far if you can survive the first part of the exams. Still, be mindful not to let it go to your head, and remember to keep your mind focused at all times no matter what," said Sephiroth, smiling at Hinata, who now felt her face had been set on fire, figuratively of course, and could only nod at his words while he now slowly walked around her. Haku mentally growled at the Hyuga girl, as the desire to ram her senbone needles into Hinata's slim neck, or her eyes now becoming something of an irritating itch the ice user felt almost compelled to scratch right now. However, the urge left her when Sephiroth stopped to look at Haku with a frown, and shaking of his head in disapproval. It made the ice user's heart want to freeze up and shatter at the notion of receiving her Sephiroth-sama's disapproval over such jealously. To her, it was a proverbial punch to the face, or the gut, while telling Haku that if she kept this up he might cast her aside for letting such an emotion cloud her judgment. Instantly, she was at his side, head down like a shamed dog beside its owner after being caught doing something wrong, and knew a punishment was going to happen the moment they were alone. Not that Sephiroth had ever punished her, but then again she had never done anything to warrant a punishment until now, and was more than a little terrified at being punished by her master. She had let emotional jealousy get the better of her, in a semi-public area for that matter in front of others, and could be considered a weakness against him to exploit in the future to possibly kill him. "Stay away from Hinata," said Kurenai to the swordsman in a protective motherly way rather than speaking like a Jounin sensei. "Do not make threats you cannot back up, Yuhi Kurenai. Unlike me, you do not have the required power to back up your threat, and not one of your fellow Jounin can help you should the desire to achieve it was there, said Sephiroth in chilling voice that made the woman tense before walking away from all of them. I'm sorry Sephiroth-sama, said Haku in a whispered voice. I know you are Haku, said Sephiroth calmly, though his voice was a bit cold for Haku's liking when she heard it. May I inquire to what my punishment is? Said Haku, as she needed to know what it was ahead of time, and know not to make the same mistake again in order to prevent such a punishment in the future. You will sleep in a separate bed until the second stage of the Chunin exams are over. At the same time, I will not come to comfort you in the event of night terrors, and no amount of begging will change my mind, said Sephiroth, as he knew such a punishment was harsh to the girl, and judging by the sudden stop in Haku's walking he knew that she knew it too.
I understand Sephiroth-sama.
I accept my punishment, said Haku, as she only had herself to blame for receiving it, and would not protest knowing such an act would not change his decision. If anything, it would only make the punishment worse, and Haku didn't want that to happen either. Dynamic entry, said Rock Lee appearing out of nowhere, as he threw a flying kick at Sephiroth, and would have it if not for Haku intercepting the limb by catching it before throwing him into a nearby wall. Lee, said Tenten quickly drawing out 2 camas after seeing the masked girl throw her teammate away. Where's my cousin? Where is Hinata-sama, said Neji in his gentle fist stance. In the room down the hall at the very end with her team and Jounin sensei. Why? Said Sephiroth calmly while Lee got up from the ground shaking his head to get the cobwebs out. Why are you here? Said Neji seeing the headband more clearly on Sephiroth's forehead with the musical note symbol. The same reason you are here, only my reason is different, and more professional. Come Haku. Let's go see who else will send their teams to this test and doom, said Sephiroth, as he walked towards the 2 members of Mito Guy's team, and saw them tensing with each step he took with neither one wanting to drop their guard. It would be wise to lower your weapons and limbs unless you wish to lose them. If Sephiroth-sama wanted you dead he could have done it easily without my interference, said Haku coldly, as she saw them look at her, and then at Sephiroth before doing what was advised to be in the best interest of their health. Letting the 2 pass, the members of Jinan Team 9 watched them leave, and then decided to head to where the other Jinan teams were located. They would need to have a serious talk with the others before the exam started if what Guy told them was true about Kakashi's team entering. Jounin waiting room 10 minutes later, did you hear the rumors? Said Kakashi to Gecko Hayate coughing slightly a nice safe distance from him. About Sephiroth being here? How could I not? It caused quite a panic. Even now the Hokage is having the Anbu searching for him, said Hayate, as he hoped Yu Gao would be okay, and didn't do anything foolish in encountering Sephiroth alone. She also has a group of Anbu near the academy for the exams in case he heads there to kill the next generation of shinobi. It would be a big disaster for the Leaf and discredit her in being Hokage of the Leaf if it happened, said Kakashi, as he continued reading his book, but when the door behind him opened, and turned to see if it was one of his fellow Jounin, the orange tomb of perverseness fell to the ground in shock. Namikaze Sephiroth was standing in the room. Poor Hayate went into a coughing fit while trying to draw his sword with little success at seeing what his fellow Jounin saw while cursing the person who thought of putting the shinobi alert button right near the door. To Sephiroth, it was quite an amusing sight to see the 2 stunned shinobi in the room looking at him, and their different reactions to his presence. Dynamic entry, said Mito Guy from behind trying to strike against Sephiroth with the result being the same for him as it was Lee, only this time the one-winged angel caught the kick before sending the man down hard onto the floor with enough force to break his leg. Don't do that again Mito Guy, because the next time you do, I'm going break your neck instead of your leg, said Sephiroth healing the broken leg. Then he walked further into the room, and sat down with Haku right beside him while eyeing Kakashi behind her mask ready to be her master's shield. So have you come here to gloat about the Leaf's mission to Wave Country nearly being a disaster with 2 teams leading it? Said Kakashi, as he had read the mission report, and had to admit it was brilliant what Sephiroth did. Do I really look to be the arrogant type? I'm here because my Jinan team is here for the Chunin exams and I was under the impression this was where Jounin senseis go to talk among themselves. Though soon as Jounin sensei seemed distant when I spoke with him briefly in the hall. I wonder why? Said Sephiroth looking at Haku, who could only shrug, and did when it appeared the question was aimed at her. I see. So you joined a minor village knowing you could enter Konoha using one of the laws of the international treaty set up by the daimyos of the elemental countries for the Chunin exams, said Kakashi, as he saw the headband on Sephiroth's forehead, and saw it was from a village he didn't recognize. Of course. After I heard about my godmother becoming the new Hokage, I was curious about her, and wanted to see how she was running the village in the Sandaime's place, said Sephiroth, as he saw Kakashi's Inaro at the mention of the third Hokage, and knew it would touch a nerve for the Jounin. You should treat the man with respect. The Sandaime Hokage was a great shinobi in his day, said Kakashi, seeing Sephiroth scoffing slightly. In his prime perhaps. However, in the end he died a spineless old man, and was more of a politician than a shinobi, said Sephiroth while hearing Kakashi's hands tighten into fists and ignored the glare from Hayate. You're just saying that because you're bitter over what the Sandaime, the Yondaime, and Jiraiya did to your previous body, said Kakashi, trying to hit the same nerve Sephiroth had hit him with. Actually, I'm not bitter. How could I be bitter when I killed him and my father on the same night, said Sephiroth, seeing Kakashi's shocked and confused look on his masked face. What do you mean? The Yondaime Hokage died 12 years ago, said Kakashi, as the cruel memory of that moment flooded his mind, and the urge to ram a kunai into the one-wing angel's face was starting to feel more appealing with each passing second. Yes, but a piece of his soul was still connected to the seal in the off chance the QB could get out, and I met him within my seal the night of my return. We had a few words before my mother appeared and helped me push my father into QB's cage for the fox to get his revenge, said Sephiroth, chuckling at the memory while Kakashi was livid at this information. You sold out your own father to the fox, yelled Kakashi in anger, now standing up, not caring if anyone heard them and actually preferred someone did. Considering what he did to his own son with the help of Sandaime and Jiraiya, I think it was only fair for him to understand the ramification that resulted from his actions. The fact my father didn't care about how I was abused by the people of the Leaf when I was Uzumaki Naruto only gave me further incentive to see him suffer, and my mother was in full agreement with me, said Sephiroth, not caring that Kakashi yelled and was expecting it given the man's deep connection to them both. Your father was a great man, and all he asked of you was to endure a little pain to ensure lives would be spared an unholy wrath by a monster made flesh, said Kakashi angrily, but the anger was nothing compared to Sephiroth when the swordsman turned his now icy eyes at the Jounin, and rose to look the man even closer in proximity. A little bit of pain? When I was Uzumaki Naruto and just 8 years old, there was a group of those so-called people my father wanted me to protect tried to set me on fire. They were laughing, calling me a demon, an abomination, while saying they were going to heaven for killing me, and doing Kami's work in ending my life. A year earlier, another group tied me to a tree, and used my body as target practice for their throwing weapons. The people of this village are scum, and the fact you would side with them knowing they brought the prophecy on themselves makes you just as bad as them, said Sephiroth, as he saw Kakashi narrow his eye at him, and wanted to slug the boy hard in the face. It was necessary for the good of the people of the Leaf and the world, said Kakashi in a deadly voice. It was necessary to amuse a mob of bigots and arrogant fools. People like you think that just because you survived so many horrible things that you're invincible and that you are superior to others because of it. You're not. You and the rest of the fools that believe such nonsense are the reason I exist. I exist in this world to remove such people from it and to bring things into a proper balance, said Sephiroth before leaving the room with Haku beside him, as they had enough of this place, and those within it. Is what Sephiroth said true, Kakashi? Said Hayate, as he had heard rumors about the boy's abuse, but never had some of it confirmed by the kid himself, and with such hate behind the words. It doesn't matter. The point is the boy should have sucked it up like Sensei wanted, said Kakashi while glaring at Sephiroth's back. I doubt you would be saying that if you were in his shoes. Remember, Kakashi, you say he should suck it up now, but if you were in his situation, I think the tune you are singing would change, and wouldn't be so accepting of the Yondaime's decision, said Hayate before he left the room to report to the Hokage of his sighting of Sephiroth. Idiot. What does he know? Said Kakashi before sitting back down. He knows enough, my rival. He knows that the Leaf brought the prophecy on ourselves and its people are too arrogant to admit it, said Guy, having heard everything and let the swordsman pass him without resistance. Shut up, Guy, said Kakashi, as he was in no mood to hear from people questioning his sensei, the Sandaime, or Jiraiya of the Sannin for that matter. Hokage's office, Tsunade was trying to hold on to her patience, as she waited for Sephiroth to be escorted into her office, and hoped the people that did weren't idiots to provoke him. All of the international laws the daimyo set up were for the most part a two-way street, as the host village and country of the Chunin exams could be punished if there is evidence of the village mistreating its guests. Even the fire daimyo had to play by the rules, knowing that while fire country was the strongest of the elemental countries, could still be stopped by the overwhelming force of the other countries wanting to put the feudal lord in his place. The man had become arrogant with his power since the end of the last Shinobi War when the Yondaime took office, and more so after the defeat of Kyubi, giving the feudal lord of fire country considerable bragging rights. Arrogance was a poison on humanity, and right now it infested most of the village and the only power higher than the Hokages in fire country. Tsunade-sama. He's coming, said Shizune entering the room looking nervous. Working quickly, Tsunade wanted Sephiroth to look upon her impressed at sight of his godmother, and quickly removed all things that would make him think less of her. The female Hokage quickly hid the paperwork that she still needed to be finished, the emergency sake, the other emergency sake for when Shizune took the others, and had to quickly make sure her own features were not out of place. Hair, skin, clothing, and even Tsunade's boobs needed to be checked to ensure everything was set for when Sephiroth stepped through that door. Within moments of Shizune giving Tsunade a thumbs up, the door to the room opened, and Sephiroth entered with Haku by his side while Anbu were behind them looking ready to strike the moment they saw any signs of attack aimed at their Hokage. As for Sephiroth himself, he along with Haku were looking around the room before stopping at the Hokage's desk, and the current Hokage sitting behind it. "Welcome back to Konoha Namikaze Sephiroth. Thank you for meeting with me. Leave us," said Tsunade while smiling at her godson before pointing at the Anbu to leave. "With all due respect Hokage-sama, this thing is responsible for killing your predecessor, and it would be risky to leave you here without protection," said the Anbu captain, as he saw Sephiroth glance at him, and saw the smirk on the swordsman's face. "I'm not asking. I'm telling you, as a direct order from your Hokage, and you wouldn't be disobeying an order from your Hokage now, would you, Captain?" said Tsunade, as she glared at the man, and waited until they finally obeyed her orders. "Some things in this village haven't changed since I was here last not that long ago," said Sephiroth sitting down in his chair while Haku did the same with her own, though she made sure they were both free of potential restraints to capture him. "Regrettably so, I'm afraid."
Sephiroth, I want you to know that I wouldn't have left you here to the pain you suffered under my grandfather's village.
"Your mother and I were very close when growing up. Kushina was the daughter I always wanted, and when she asked me to be your godmother after all that had happened in my life in losing people I cared about, I couldn't refuse. After Kyubi was sealed, the Sandaime came to see me. He said that you had died after the sealing due to the strain, and you along with the Kyubi were destroyed. At the time, I had no reason to doubt my sensei since he rarely ever lied to me in the first place, and when I came back for his funeral after learning the reason behind his death, I just couldn't bring myself to mourn him properly. What your father, my sensei, and my former teammate did to use you the way they did was wrong," said Tsunade, as she saw Sephiroth close his eyes for a second, and take a long deep breath while she held her own inside. "I believe you. There are no lies in your words. Only sorrow laced with the truth. For that reason, I offer you this warning, and information regarding this village to protect those worth protecting," said Sephiroth, sensing Haku's shock at him helping the leaf. "What warning? What piece of information?" said Tsunade, as she saw Sephiroth eye the wall to his right, and then motioned for Haku to deal with it in a second. "Orochimaru plans to invade Konoha during the Chunin exams," said Sephiroth after Haku moved quickly, decisively, and threw a barrage of senbone needles at the wall he had looked at to reveal a now unconscious root shinobi that had been concealing himself under a genjutsu before having been turned into a living pin cushion. "I see. Anything else you can tell me?" said Tsunade, as she eyed the root shinobi on the ground, and snarled in anger at the fact this one of Anbu captain level was listening on their conversation on the whims of Danzo. "Private security force or big breasts. Only that it's supposed to happen later in the game. He's getting all his pieces ready to invade while your pieces aren't even on the board. Even if they were, chances are that Orochimaru will know where to counter your pieces due to the spies in the leaf, and other people wishing to take your title for themselves," said Sephiroth, as he saw his godmother nod slowly, knowing who was being referred to, and would make sure plans were put in motion to protect the leaf on both fronts. "I'll take care of it," said Tsunade before seeing Sephiroth rise from his chair to leave. "My service here is done. Keep an eye on the Jinan teams for these exams. Nothing is what it seems, and the snake has the ability to shed its skin in order to prevent its death or capture," said Sephiroth, as he headed towards the door, and stopped when Tsunade called out to him. "Sephiroth, wait. If the people in the village were punished, would you come back to life here?" said Tsunade, seeing him stop at the door to pause and weigh her words. "In all honesty, my godmother, my answer is no to your question, and it doesn't matter if you did punish the people responsible for my suffering. The Fire Daimyo wouldn't let you punish them regardless. I know he supported the decision to have me suffer while I was in the form of Uzumaki Naruto and to have all those seals placed on my body," said Sephiroth, as he left the room, and didn't look back, though Haku did before following behind her master. "That was an interesting conversation," said Shizune, as she saw just how protective the girl Haku was of Sephiroth, and how complex the swordsman seemed to be when they spoke. "No shit. Even though he doesn't hate me, it's clear Sephiroth is not happy with the leaf, and I fear for the lives of those in the village that don't deserve his wrath. Even if such a number of people are only a handful," said Tsunade, as she sighed knowing things were getting out of hand, and it was through her godson that it was happening. Damn her sensei. Jiraiya, and any others that followed their line of thought. Konoha streets. Moments later, many people gave Sephiroth a wide open space to walk through the streets of the village, as the swordsman had a small smile on his face, and ignored the people whispering about him behind his back. He had heard all of it before, as they would say all their usual hate-filled words, and wondering why the Anbu weren't here in this area to arrest or kill him. Many wondered who the masked person was beside him with the sound headband, as the name of the Sephiroth's partner was kept tight-lipped, sealed by the Hokage herself, and that if the information got out then everyone who knew Haku's name would face a Viki along with Anko in the INT department for a little chat. The last thing Tsunade needed was someone trying to attack the girl and unleash a fury that the Leaf had no hope of withstanding at the hands of Haku's master. "Monster!" yelled a young teary-eyed child filled with anger in his voice, now several feet behind Sephiroth while in the middle of the street with a kunai in hand. Turning slowly to see the child, who called him that name, Sephiroth came face to face with a scarf-wearing boy wearing the Sandaime's war helmet, and was wearing a childlike version of the Sandaime's uniform. From his own memories, Sephiroth recalled him talking to the Sandaime about his grandson, and this kid seemed to look just like the old Cage. "So the grandson of the Sandaime graces me with his presence. And he's ready for battle too," said Sephiroth in an amused voice while smiling slightly at the foolhardy child. "You killed my grandfather. I, Sarutobi Konohamaru, shall avenge him," said the boy, as he had now got all eyes on both of them, and just about everyone waiting to see what would happen. "I've killed people in 3 countries and in this lifetime alone." "What's your point?" said Sephiroth with a slightly raised eyebrow. "You had no right to kill him," said the angry child before he charged at Sephiroth, but was stopped by a flash of white light, and the tip of the older boy's sword now touching the tip of the Sandaime's helmet. "I had no right? Is that what you just said? Before you jump rash conclusions that could get you killed, child, I suggest you learn all the facts behind your grandfather's demise, and not just what the arrogant people say just to spite me. Your grandfather wronged me for first 12 years of my life. He fed me lies, he let people hurt me, and didn't care that I was constantly tormented by the fools around us. The man cost me a happy life to call my own, and his debt had to be paid, by paying with his own life," said Sephiroth, as he saw the child look at him with denial, and would have shaken his head too if not for the tip of Masamune threatening to tear through it into the child's skull. "He was a hero," said Konohamaru defiantly. "When he was younger, I'm sure the Sandaime was indeed the hero everyone made him out to be, and did his job nobly. However, the man I killed was a weak, sniveling old man, who had failed to understand the simple fact that some things cannot be stopped, and to try stopping them will only result in their manifestation. He let an innocent child suffer to prevent the sinner within that child from coming out, but the end result of his action just made that sinner come out, and let me take my revenge for the innocent part of my soul that should not have suffered in the first place. At the moment, you are too young to truly understand this, and worse is your mind has already been deeply poisoned by those that speak ill of me," said Sephiroth, as he dispelled his sword, and turned to leave with a shocked child in his wake. "Where are you going? Why not kill me like you did my grandfather?" said Konohamaru in shock and anger at being spared. "Because despite your mentality being poisoned by those around you, I sense there is still a chance for it to be saved, and to see things from a far greater perspective. However, in the event that you cannot, I will have no choice but to destroy you, and believe me when I say, I do not wish to do that," said Sephiroth, as he walked away from the still shocked child, and headed for some place peaceful where he along with Haku could relax. Not many options considering just where they were. However, like his Jinan team, Sephiroth just needed to survive today, and live through tomorrow so his plans could come to fruition. Chapter 6 Pieces being placed. Sephiroth found it was somewhat ironic that it would be his clan home of all places he would seek refuge from the rest of the Leaf, but since the location was the only form of housing that would let him rest without any outside interferences, and rightfully so due to his heritage. As for the Namikaze Estates itself, the building wasn't as massive as say the Hyuga compound, or the Uchiha district that once housed well over 100 Uchiha. It was slightly smaller than the Hyuga compound, but still had a majestic look about it, and wasn't anything negative the more snobbish people of those other clans could say to change that fact. Not that the members of the Uchiha clan could since all, but a handful were alive, and only one of them was in the village. Even then, the Uchiha within the Leaf was just a runt at best, and a waste of a life at the very worst. Touching the door with his hand, Sephiroth waited for the security seal to appear on the door, and scan his hand knowing it would check his chakra signature to see if he really was a Namikaze. Sure enough, The seal glowed green to indicate he was a namikaze, and the seals surrounding the home from alarms to the man-explosive tags underneath the foundation of the namikaze estates deactivated. Opening the door, the swordsman had motioned with his head for Haku to follow, and found the place to be well preserved in time from the last moments it was used over a decade ago. There was some dust, which was natural, and the smell coming from the kitchen told the two that it would need to be cleaned out of expired foods. "Do you think it is safe to be here, Sephiroth-sama?" said Haku, looking around the house that once housed so many of her master's kin. "The security seal prevents anyone not of namikaze descent from entering this home, which by the looks of things hasn't been touched since my father sealed it up, and there is no one else that could enter here now except myself. I'll reactivate the seal soon, but for now, we need to clean and freshen this place up before we can rest," said Sephiroth, as he made several clones and sent them to work. "I will help them," said Haku, as she made a shadow clone herself thanks to her master teaching the jutsu to her, and warned about its high chakra usage. "While they work, let us spend some time resting in one of our rooms, and regain our lost strength," said Sephiroth, as he walked up the stairs of the home, and found a room his mother had made him upon learning she was pregnant. Opening the door slowly, Sephiroth's eyes softened at the sight of the room made for a baby, filled with a mother's love and joy in bringing a child into the world. With his mind, Sephiroth pictured what life would have been like with Kushina raising him, and showering his person with love. The smiles, the laughter, the loving words that a mother gives her child every day with, and what every child wants to hear. It was by this point, Sephiroth felt something watery run down his cheeks, and raised his hand to his face to touch the liquid that descended from one of his eyes. He was crying. The great Namikaze Sephiroth, the butcher of Midgar, the one-winged angel of death with the power to bring all life to its knees, and not care about the consequences, was crying. "Sephiroth-sama?" ate Haku, as she saw him staring at what was in the room, and then at his face before she gasped at the young swordsman's face to see the tears that ran down it. "It's all right, Haku. Just seeing shadows of what could have been," said Sephiroth, as he shut the door and walked away from the room. "Sephiroth-sama," thought Haku, as she looked at the door of the shut room, and realized what he meant by that statement. It was then Haku knew what she had to do and damn the punishment that would come of it. "Shinobi Academy room number 301, so he is here. In the village?" said Sasuke with a show of interest. "Yes. From what he told us, Sephiroth is the Jounin sensei for the Jinan team from the minor shinobi village of Sound, and is using the laws set up by the daimyos of the elemental countries to come here with temporary immunity," said Shino, as he saw Sasuke fuming at the considered dead last of their shinobi academy being titled the rank of Jounin, and a sensei to boot. "Troublesome. Our original sensei was supposed to be Sarutobi Asuma. When he learns that his father's killer is in the village, there is no telling what will happen between those two, and if we'll have to bury another leaf shinobi," said Shikamaru, as he ran a hand through his hair, and saw his teammates were slightly scared by this news. "What skills do you think the Sound team has? I wonder how strong they are if they were trained under Sephiroth," said Kiba, as he glanced slightly at the team on the side keeping to themselves despite the looks people gave them at hearing the Leaf Shinan talk about their sensei. "In any case, we need to keep an eye on them, and be cautious during these exams should we be required to fight," said Shino while eyeing Hinata, seeing her trying not to think about fighting Sephiroth's team. There was no telling what the swordsman really thought of Hinata or why he kept on stating the potential she had was almost monstrous to his point of view. "They're nothing compared to an Uchiha. Just a bunch of runts taught by a dead last, who is considered strong among weaklings, and are no doubt weak themselves," said Sasuke, waiting for the Jinan team to attack him in anger, and allow everyone to see them be shown up by his elite superiority. Had Sephiroth not taught them patience, then that might have happened, and forced the Sound team for everyone to see what they could do from the start. However, they didn't rise to the challenge, and instead looked at the Uchiha with a bored look on their faces before looking away. When someone tries to provoke you into fighting by forcing your anger to the surface, use it against them by ignoring their words, and make it seem like your provoker is the one being pathetic. They in turn will become angry, wanting to lash out, and make their own moves predictable. One of you may have to reveal a small sample of your skills, but a small price to pay in order to take down someone supposedly stronger, and better in being a shinobi. And true to Sephiroth's words of wisdom, he empowered their minds with. The Uchiha got angry at not being acknowledged for his words, and tried to charge forward had his own teammates stopped it. Not that it mattered, as it had the direct results of making Sasuke look weak, and hot-headed in front of everyone not from the Leaf to use in the future should they encounter him. It made the Sound team look professional, as well as a force to be reckoned with, and the further made Namikaze Sephiroth a more notorious figure in people's minds. "Alright, listen up. The first part of the Chunin exams start now, so everyone take a seat to sit down in and shut up unless I tell you to speak, said the scarred-faced proctor of the room that was Morino Aviki. It's a good thing Sephiroth-sensei taught us to be patient. That outcome could have made us look like fools, thought Dosu, as he went to his assigned seat, and waited for the paper test before him to be handed out. Hokage Tower 30 minutes later, we can't let him leave here. He needs to be punished, said a civilian councilman with light red hair that in a certain light could be mistaken for a light shade of pink. And how exactly do you intend for that to happen, Councilman Haruno? The boy is now an official member of the newly formed Sound Village in Rice Country, and the laws of the treaty during the founding of the shinobi villages was quite clear. His Jinan team is taking the first part of the exam right now and has temporary immunity until his team fails or makes it to the end of the exams, said Tsunade, as she knew the people before her would want a meeting to discuss this, and hated the fact it happened so soon after she spoke to her godson. The moment the Chunin exams ends, we order every Anbu and Jounin to place him under arrest before throwing him in a cell with Aviki. Afterwards, Inoiki can go into his mind, and then destroy Sephiroth from the inside, said the Haruno councilman, knowing if anyone could destroy their enemy it was those two. It's not possible. The laws on the matter are clear, straightforward, and any attempt to work around them is impossible. After the Chunin exams are over, all contestants that are from foreign shinobi villages have 24 hours to leave, and not a minute sooner. If you provoke such things, it will bring down the wrath of other countries, and their shinobi too. Fire Country cannot withstand the might of so many possible enemies that would leap at the chance to destroy us over something like this, said Aburame Shibi, who under Tsunade's orders was to research the laws thoroughly before the meeting started, and help her prevent a major incident. So we just let him go? After all he's done? He killed the Sandaime. Not to mention the QB inside of him makes his life all the more forfeit, said the Haruno councilman, as he wanted the former blonde killed twice over, and removed the village's stain from it. And what have you all done to him? How much abuse did he have to take before you were satisfied? How much? Said Tsunade, as she couldn't take this meeting anymore, and hated the fact these arrogant fools wanted to provoke Sephiroth like a kid with a stick would jab a sleeping dragon right in the eye. The Sandaime had, said the Haruno councilman, but was silenced by Tsunade's fist hitting the desk, and the killer intent that covered the room. The Sandaime was an old fool. He should have left the boy in my care rather than trying to prevent a prophecy he helped bring about by letting Yubaka's here hurt the boy. I know my old sensei had the support of the Fire Daimyo for this, but I don't care if he did, because the Sandaime was wrong, and so was the Fire Daimyo for giving his blessing on the matter, said Tsunade, as she heard the gasps of the people in the room, and saw them looking at her like she just announced Kami. Hokage-sama, if the Fire Daimyo hears you say that he'll strip of your title, and imprison you for such blasphemy, said Koharu, as she eyed Danzo give a brief smirk, and knew the man would let such information slip. Let him find out. I don't care, since it's the truth and he's just being an arrogant prick and not seeing it. This village along with Fire Country need me more than I need either of them right now. Without my help, the Leaf wouldn't even be considered the strongest shinobi village anymore, and would start to decline in power. This meeting is over. Get the hell out of here before I make you, said Tsunade, as she pointed to the door, and glared at the people in the room that wanted to do what she felt was the stupidest thing in the world in wanting to take down Namikaze Sephiroth. It couldn't be done. Namikaze estates. Sometime later, Sephiroth had awakened from his slumber in the king-size bed of the master bedroom of his once great family, finding it to be just as comfortable as the last bed he had rested in back centuries ago when things were much different compared to now, and looked at the figure sleeping next to him with a frown. The figure that was Haku had approached him, as he was about to enter his bed, wearing crimson robes that did little to hide the growing figure the female ice user possessed, and walked up to his person before hugging him with all her strength. It was only when Sephiroth felt her fingers hit a specific pressure point just below his neck near his right shoulder did the silver-haired swordsman realize what had happened before sleep claimed him and the ice user apologizing for such actions. Right before his mind fully entered the land of dreams after being placed on the bed, Sephiroth had heard Haku's robes leaving her body, and then felt that same feminine form move on top over his before telling him that she would accept any punishment after this. That this physical contact was more for him than for her, and that didn't want him to suffer from things from his past that kept plaguing his mind. For his part, Sephiroth was confused on how he could punish Haku for this, and found that he couldn't find it in his mind to do such a thing. What Haku had said about the body contact when they slept was indeed more for himself than for her in easing his mind when asleep. Though Sephiroth was sure it was an added bonus for the female ice user to help forestall his initial punishment after what happened with Konoha's Jinan teammate with her killer intent aimed at Hinata. Could he even punish her for that now? Could he punish her for that when it was clear this action Haku caused had helped give him the most peaceful slumber he's ever had and possibly, forever? Her loyalty to him was beyond anything he had ever seen in this life or his past back in Soldier when most would have despised him for what he was despite the cruelty behind his actions. No. He couldn't punish Haku now. Loyalty counted for something and this girl had given it to him without hesitation in her actions. Watching his back when walking, even though it wasn't even warranted, and eyeing for all potential threats when he knew who was a threat to his person before she did. Trying to rise from his bed, Haku's right hand on his chest held onto him further, and Sephiroth heard the girl mumble his name while trying to keep him in the bed. Deciding to humor the girl, Sephiroth laid back on the bed, but raised his right hand to create an orb of energy, and said scan, Leaf Academy room number 301 in a whispered voice. The end result of his spell showed him seeing the students finishing the written part of the exam and a strange if not wild purple-haired woman quite literally crashing right through the window of the room to reveal herself to be the next proctor. Haku, it's time to get up, said Sephiroth, as he needed to have a moment with his team before the next part of the exam started, and knew his window was only open for a short time. Besides, he wanted to make his presence known to the other Genin, and put another part of his plan into action. I don't want to Sephiroth-sama and you need your rest, said Haku in a sleepy voice, as she looked up at him, and had to hold back this urge to kiss him like they were lovers. I've rested enough, thanks to your efforts, Haku. Consider my standing punishment now lifted, said Sephiroth, as he saw the girl become more awake, and then look at him with disbelief on her face before glomping onto him with incredible force. Thank you, Sephiroth-sama. I'm not worthy of your mercy, said Haku, as she had tears of joy flowing down her face, and felt Master's hand touch her back. Directly in the middle of the back too, so he couldn't and wouldn't appear to be invading Haku's personal physical space that made him out to be a pervert. Not that Haku would mind if he did invade such space. No, Haku. I am the one not worthy, thought Sephiroth, feeling something deep within him that was the part of Uzumaki Naruto stirring slightly. The part that still cared about others. The part of him that still existed and had on a deep subconscious level within his mind kept the reincarnated agent of death from acting like his past self centuries ago. It helped keep arrogance from consuming him like it had all those years ago with Cloud Strife, and it helped bring about his own death at the spiky blonde's hands. In a way, the fragment of Uzumaki Naruto was like Cloud Strife, but in a good way to help Sephiroth learn from past mistakes, and to remind himself that it was okay to open up one's heart. If only just slowly and 1 inch at a time. Outside the forest of death, okay maggots, this sensation behind me is the one, and the only forest of death that you will be entering in the next 15 minutes. Now, to keep the leaf from being harassed by your village if you're not from here, forms of consent will be handed out, and basically they will read that the leaf along with the proctor for this part of the Chunin exams are exempt from persecution for any loss of life. So anyone want to back out now, this is the time, and to talk it over before we start. You have 5 days to get to the central tower in the middle of the forest of death with 2 scrolls, with one we give you and the other is the opposite of what you have that another team possesses. In short, take down another Genin team with a different scroll than yours, and do it before the end of the 5th day to avoid any unpleasant acts, said Anko, as she had one of the other proctors with her hand out the forms, and saw some of the Genin were looking scared. But not entirely from the forest of death or herself. It's him, said one Genin from Mist in awe. It's the one-winged angel himself, said another from Ame, seeing Sephiroth make his appearance known to the large group of Genin while heading towards his own. Anko looked at the boy, who was said to have killed the Sandaime, and felt conflicted on the matter due to the old man helping her out when she came back to the leaf. After the bastard traitor Orochimaru had given Anko the prototype curse seal years ago, it was the Sandaime himself, who defended her from the councils, and being given a chance to prove she wasn't like him. Still, Anko was also a witness to the abuse the kid before her that became Sephiroth had suffered, and heard from Iruka himself that the Sandaime had a hand in it. It seemed hypocritical in Anko's mind that the Sandaime would let a child suffer and yet the old man saved her from such pain while growing up. It didn't make any sense, and yet here the quite handsome-looking kid was walking towards his students with the masked shinobi beside him. Sephiroth-sensei, said the sound Genin at the same time before kneeling out of respect for him. Rise and report, said Sephiroth simply with the team obeying. We are about to enter the next stage of the exam, Sephiroth-sensei, said Dosu for his group, seeing them nod in agreement, having signed the form the second it was in their hands. Good. Don't play around. Just do what needs to be done for this part of the exam. Am I clear on that fact? Said Sephiroth, looking at each of them with his piercing gaze. Crystal clear, Sephiroth-sensei, said the trio at the same time. Good. I expect all 3 of you after this part is over. If you don't, said Sephiroth with his eyes glowing slightly, and they knew what that meant. We understand, Sephiroth-sensei, said Dosu, bowing his head with the other two on the team following his action. Alright. Enough talk. Is everyone ready? Then move your assess, said Anko, drawing everyone away from the group from sound before the gate doors opened. Go, and don't forget the side mission. Get the scroll you need first, plus another one to be your backup, and then take out your target. Since you are associated with me, expect quite a few people to come after you, and the scroll in your possession, said Sephiroth to his team before they nodded and left through their gate. So you're the infamous Gaki everyone is talking about, like you are some kind of big bad boogeyman, said Anko, walking up to Sephiroth while the masked shinobi looked at her with killing intent. You will address Sephiroth-sama by his name, or else I will cut out the majority of your tongue, said Haku with venom in her voice at the disrespect Sephiroth was getting. That's enough, Haku. She means well, said Sephiroth, as he knew the girl wasn't acting protective of him out of jealousy like before with Hyuga Hinata, and let the killer intent slide, knowing Kimimaro was the same way with them when the swordsman didn't add the Sama suffix to Orochimaru's name. I'm sure she does. Still, I find it hard to believe the Hokage was taken down by you, since your academy records were not not what one would call at prodigy level, said Anko, though she did sense this kid had killed and was no stranger to the sight of blood like so many kids were his age. That was a shell of a boy suffocating constantly under wave after wave of lies. I'm not him anymore, said Sephiroth, though that wasn't a complete lie, as there was some form of Uzumaki Naruto living inside of him. But the last piece of his life was a means to prevent himself from being a totally heartless monster like he had been centuries ago. Yeah, I can tell. Well, I'm going to sit here and listen to the Jinan and their cry out for their mommies. Want to stay and listen? Said Anko, seeing how Sephiroth surprisingly shaken his head no. There's no need. I've heard such screams before. They're all the same, said Sephiroth in a whispery voice before walking away from the special Jounin, but stopped when a battle cry came from above, and Sarutobi Asuma was coming down upon him with a furious rage of a 500-pound gorilla. Sephiroth moved out of the way, as did Haku, and Anko, though she quickly motioned for one of the proctors to inform the Hokage of what was happening while she would try to get the situation under control. You damn monster, said Sarutobi Asuma, as he rose from the crater, his body and fist made while looking at the swordsman with angry bloodshot eyes. Judging by your appearance, I'd say you are related to the Sandaime Hokage, and wish to end my life like his grandson tried to not that long ago, said Sephiroth, as his sword materialized, and Masamune was now ready to be used against this anger-driven fool. You're damn right I do. My father helped others around him, and you go snuffing him out like a candle without any remorse, said Asuma, getting out his trench knives and wasn't about to be intimidated by this so-called one-winged angel of death that had everyone spooked. Your father was an old fool that betrayed the convictions he lived by. So did my father, for that matter, so I think the two are in good company right now, in hell, said Sephiroth, knowing it would provoke the Jounin into a fight. And he was right. Bastard, said Asuma, charging at Sephiroth, but Anko used her hidden shadow snake jutsu, and bound the leaf shinobi to prevent him from throwing his life away. You can't attack him, Asuma. If you fight him in an unsanctioned battle, then Konoha itself will take a hit by breaking international laws, and that will bring down your family's reputation, said Anko, as she saw Asuma struggling against her snakes, and glaring at her with anger. Like you of all people truly care about the leaf. You're just like that traitorous bastard Orochimaru, said Asuma, making Anko tense and become angry herself at hearing that from the son of the man she still respected despite certain acts that had come to light. Any further discussion into the matter was ended when Asuma cried out in pain when a Nadachi-class blade pierced his stomach and was cruelly twisted by Sephiroth. The boy had seen Anko's eyes become filled with pain at Asuma's comment and had heard the whispers about the special Jounin when he was young, when the people weren't talking about him. Granted, at the time the whispers about Anko reached his ears, he didn't know it was her, and only by seeing things for himself did the one-winged angel see just how much damage the leaf had caused to someone aside from himself. And who are you to judge her, Asuma-san? She restrained you in order to prevent you from being destroyed at my hands with Masamune. I'm still debating internally on the decision of whether I should give you the same death as your father when I had him in a similar position. Then again, I think it would be best for the Hokage to deal with you, said Sephiroth before pulling out his sword, and watched the Sarutobi before him fall to his knees. Monster, said Asuma, trying to break free from the snakes, but couldn't due to stab wound Sephiroth hit him with, and the Anko's mastery over snakes. Is that all you can say to me? The same thing over and over again? I hate parrots, said Sephiroth, as he walked away from the two just as a squad of Anbu, and the Hokage looking quite peeved about the situation. What the hell is going on, Anko? said Tsunade, seeing Asuma in his condition and hoped the special Jounin had a good explanation right now. Anko looked from the Hokage to where Sephiroth was, only to find him not there, and the one named Haku wasn't either. Cursing mentally at being left to hold the bag on this situation by Sephiroth, Anko told the Hokage what she wanted to know, and that Asuma tried to attack the silver-haired boy in anger over the loss of the Sandaime. Fortunately, Sephiroth had basically left things in the Hokage's hands to handle it from the words he spoke, and was apparently not going to get too mixed up in this minor event. What Anko or Tsunade knew, however, was that Sephiroth had a reason for not killing Asuma, and anyone else in the village regardless of politics, since being a sound shinobi was only a temporary thing for him. Like Orochimaru, the swordsman was using this time to put pieces into place, and right now his own weren't in position yet, nor did he have enough of them. To make everything possible, it would require converting both sides to his own, and making those he recruited see the truth behind the lies. Already, Sephiroth had Zabuza, the demon brothers, and of course Haku to count on should he need them, even if the former three named were not currently around at the moment. Even without them here, he still had the chance to recruit Anko if cards were played just right, and then there was Kimimaro working for Orochimaru. The man was fanatically loyal to the snake Sanin and would need to be contacted with the promise of being cured if he came to the leaf for the treatment in secret, to be a secret surprise for Orochimaru later. Of course, the conversion of Kimimaro could have a negative aspect to it for Sephiroth, as the albino Kaguya may not wish to side with the one-winged angel, and may side with the fifth Hokage out of appreciation for the cure. Still, it wouldn't be a total loss for him, as Sephiroth knew that one less piece on the board that was on Orochimaru's side was a small victory in his book, and at least his godmother would have a powerful ally from it. There were still others for Sephiroth to collect to his side. Forest of Death's central tower. Several days later, "You didn't complete your mission to kill Sasuke," said Sephiroth simply from the look of disappointment on their faces. As their sensei predicted, the team had been attacked soon after takeoff from the gate leading into the Forest of Death by a team from Iwa, and another from Kumo soon after that. They were easily taken down, and good fortune was with them in having what they needed to make it to the central tower. Unfortunately, they needed to hunt down Team 7 upon orders from Orochimaru to kill Sasuke, and that was when things went bad for them in regards to how that happened. "We nearly succeed, Sephiroth sensei, but Orochimaru gave the boy a curse seal, and it activated briefly during his state of unconsciousness while we had to fight off several other leaf shinobi that came to his rescue. The Uchiha broke Zaku's arms during our confrontation with him due to the curse seal," said Dosu, knowing that they had no real excuse for failure, but felt this was information he needed to know, and use for later. So that was his plan. "I see it fully now. Depending on what happens next, it's safe to say that none of you are safe from Orochimaru, and are considered expendable in his eyes," said Sephiroth, as he saw the three look at him in disbelief, but the look faded quickly with realization, and they saw the truth behind Orochimaru's purpose for them. "What do we do?" said Kin, as she was technically the weakest of the group, and could be taken down easily after using her skills with senbone needles that had bells attached to them. "For the moment, you play the game you're in, and wait for the right moment to change things in your favor to survive. What is the next step in the exams from this point in the tower?" said Sephiroth, seeing his team think for a second. "We honestly don't know, sensei. We have to wait another few days before the proctors come with the other teams that may have survived the Forest of Death," said Zaku, as he winced slightly at the feel of his broken arms, and wondered if he could even compete at all. "Haku, take a look at Zaku's arms, and find out if he can compete in the next part of the exam. As for the you two, get some more rest, as this is a small grace period that allows it, and shouldn't be squandered," said Sephiroth, leaving the room. "Where are you going, Sephiroth sensei?" said Kin curiously. "To check out the other teams that are here, of course," said Sephiroth with a smirk on his face. "I'll never understand what's going on inside his head," said Dosu, shaking his head at his sensei. "Me neither." "Ow," said Zaku, as he felt pain from Haku's grip and tug of his arms. Few more days later, welcome all of you to the next stage of the Chunin exams. Normally, after this portion of the exams is done, we would give everyone that made it this far a 1-month reprieve to prepare for the Chunin exam finals, and one-on-one competition. However, since there are still so many of you here despite what the second part of the Chunin exam was designed for, we will have a preliminary exam to test your skills here, and thin out the group further with one-on-one competition, said Tsunade, as she saw the shocked looks on their faces, and the look of displeasure from Team 10 at having just arrived barely on the final day. "Troublesome. We just get here and now this," said Shikamaru to himself. "If anyone wants to quit now, raise your hand, and announce your intentions before we begin the preliminaries," said Aviki, seeing Kabuto raise his hand and signifying that he was quitting. "Can you still compete, Zaku?" said Dosu, seeing his teammates both arms still in a sling. Yeah. That Haku girl fixed them up so I can use them, but I don't need them knowing that until it's too late, and their guard is lowered, said Zaku, as he had to admit the female ice user knew her stuff, and had them working better than he thought possible. Though Haku did mention not to push himself beyond his current limits or else his limbs will beyond her skills to heal. Proctor, I would like to forfeit, said Kabuto with a sheepish look on his face while the scarred man's own scrunched into a frown for a few seconds of silence. Very well. Strike him from the list, said Ibiki to Anko, and watched the young man walk out of the room before glancing at the Hokage currently deep in thought on the matter. After Team 7 came in, looking like they got the crap kicked out of them, Sai had told Kakashi, who reported to the Hokage about the incident involving Orochimaru, and the Sannin giving Sasuke the curse seal. He also reported that the sound team had apparent orders from the Sannin himself to kill the Uchiha specifically during the second portion of the exam, though it was unknown if Sephiroth was in on this too. Chances were, the one-winged angel of death did know about this, but only about the order to kill Sasuke, and not about the curse seal to keep the swordsman somewhat in the dark should Ibiki ever get a hold of him for information. Not that Ibiki expected Sephiroth to crack under pressure. Sasuke, you should drop out of this now because of the curse seal that Orochimaru guy gave you, said Sakura worriedly while Sasuke scoffed and had a hand on the seal the Sannin had placed on him. As if I would let my chance to become a Chunin go at the drop of the hat. Itachi would continue on, and so will I, said Sasuke while glaring at Sakura. Itachi was stronger than you and also has a penis, said Sai, making the sound team near them snicker along with some of the others around Team 7. Your student Sai has issues, said Kurenai to Kakashi while the Cyclops sighed in defeat at this embarrassment. You have no idea, said Kakashi while looking at Sasuke wanting to kill Sai right now. Open it up, said Anko into the receiver of the communication device, and a portion of the wall behind her had opened up to reveal a screen with random names being generated. 2 names will be selected at random to compete first while the rest of you watch until the next pair of names is randomly selected, said Ibiki, as everyone looked at the screen, and saw the first 2 names appear. Uchiha Sasuke vs Akato Yoroi. I'm first up, huh? Not surprising, said Sasuke with a smirk. Hopefully your opponent will be able to help you find your own penis, said Sai, earning him a seething look from Sasuke and laughter from the other Genin in the room that could no longer hold it back anymore. I'm going to kill you for that after I win, thought Sasuke while everyone else went to the balcony area to watch the match. Who do you think will win, Sephiroth-sama? Said Haku while her master watched the match with mild boredom. Doesn't matter. I could care less about either of them, said Sephiroth, seeing Sasuke glare at him for his words, knowing they would be heard. Hey! Sasuke-kun is an Uchiha, you freak. Show him some respect, said Sakura, making everyone tense and look between the two for the pink-haired girl's inevitable death. Being an Uchiha doesn't mean he gains respect from others. To gain respect from others, one must earn it, and earn it through harsh trials. Something your team knows nothing about, said Sephiroth, seeing Sakura become angry with rage. Are you blind, you silver-haired baka? Sasuke-kun's clan was wiped out and was the only survivor. How is that not harsh? Said Sakura, walking up to him and nearly in his face. All he saw were the bodies of the dead after all killing ended. Not once has Sasuke stood over the bodies of those he's killed. Not once has destroyed lives with a swing of his sword. Not once has he heard the screams of his victims as they drew their final breath before crossing over to the other side. His brother spared him because Sasuke was not and is not worth killing. Not because your so-called last Uchiha has potential, but because he is a runt, and Uchiha Itachi pitied his little brother for what he was, if not still is, said Sephiroth, looking the now terrified girl right in the eyes with killer intent aimed at the pink-haired Genin. Enough. Sakura, move away from Sephiroth where it's safe, said Kakashi, moving his now terrified student away from the boy, but giving him a glare, and got a smirk for his troubles. Don't bother trying to intimidate me, Hatake-san. You have enough troubles with your own team as it is, said Sephiroth, looking down at the floor to see Sasuke getting his chakra drained by his opponent. And was losing badly. Enough. Uchiha Sasuke cannot continue. The winner is Akato Yoroi, said Anko, being the referee for this event since Hayate was a Jounin sensei and couldn't for the chance of there being a conflict of interest. That, and she wanted Sasuke's curse seal being sealed up right away, was also an added incentive. Reluctantly, Yoroi let Sasuke go from his draining hold, and walked away from the down Uchiha while the wounded pride of the so-called elite of Konoha seethed in anger. He would have said something to Anko, which would probably got him in big trouble, and a trip to the hospital had it not been for Kakashi coming down quickly to take him to the sealing room to take care of the curse seal on his neck. One less nuisance to deal with today, said Sephiroth, as he looked at the board above going through a random selection of names. Inuzuka Kiba vs Sabaku no Kankuro Showtime buddy, said Kiba, as his dog barked in agreement, and the two leapt down to fight the Genin from Suna. Don't screw this up, or I'll kill you, said Gaara, seeing his brother freeze for a second before descending the steps. Come on Kankuro old buddy. You can do this. Nothing to worry about, except for the clear threat of Gaara crushing your body should you fail, thought Kankuro, as he sensed Gaara's gaze, and Tamari's smirk at possibly having one less sibling in the family. She was still peeved at him for using her makeup kit to cover his face when he was 8 years old and called it war paint of all things. Ready? Fight, said Anko, as she saw Kiba charge forward, and punched Kankuro right in the face that sent him into the wall. That was quick, said Kiba, scratching his head before the smoke cleared to reveal that the person he hit wasn't a person at all, but rather a puppet that looked like its handler, and before the Inuzuka could react, the puppet leapt out at him before putting the boy in a terrible vice grip. You were saying? Said Kankuro, getting up from the ground and out of the wrappings that concealed him, and saw Orochimaru growling. You should tell your student to forfeit before he dies, said Sephiroth, appearing next to Kurenai, making the female Jounin jump in fright. And why do you care? Said Kurenai, narrowing her eyes at him. I don't. That's your job, and right now you're not doing it, said Sephiroth simply, while seeing the woman become angry at his words. He's right, Kurenai-sensei. The limbs of the puppet that have Kiba trapped are blades and can cut into him easily. Even if Orochimaru attacks the puppet user, he takes the risk of the puppet digging its blades into Kiba, and killing him in the process, said Shino, seeing the woman not liking the idea of listening to Sephiroth, but knew she would see the long silver-haired swordsman's point, and concede to that fact. Kiba. Forfeit the match before you get killed, said Kurenai, while looking at Sephiroth for a moment with a glare. Alright. I forfeit. Now let me go, said Kiba, as he felt the blades becoming to close for comfort, and knew this could end up bad for him if he resisted further. Winner by forfeit is Sabaku no Kankuro, said Anko, seeing the boy from Suna use his manipulations of the puppet to let the Inuzuka go, and went back up the steps with a smile on his makeup-covered face. He got to live for another day. Haruno Sakura vs Yamanaka Ino. Time to settle this, forehead girl, said Ino, as she saw her friend smile, and the two now headed down to the arena floor to do battle. Taking this time to get away from the boring fight between fangirls, Sephiroth walked over to Sabaku no Gaara, and ignored the red-headed boy's killer intent. As for the boy's own siblings, they were on guard should the infamous boy try something, and even their Jounin sensei Baki was silently preparing a wind jutsu that would kill her, a lesser person. What do you want? Said Gaara, feeling his sand stir on its own and mother doing the same. To talk while we have a chance. Not here, of course, with so many ears around us attuned to the sound of my voice, but soon after these preliminaries are over, we need to talk, and about what makes people believe we are truly monsters in their eyes, said Sephiroth, his eyes flashing crimson for a second and seeing Gaara's eyes widen slightly before nodding slightly. Without another word, Sephiroth left the youngest of the Suna siblings to his thoughts, and saw both competitors on the arena floor knocking each other out in a double KO. A boring fight, just as Sephiroth knew it would be. Abumi Zaku vs Aburame Shino. Time to advance, said Zaku, as he headed to the steps, but was blocked by his Jounin sensei, and saw the serious look behind it. Remember, double the pride is twice the fall, said Sephiroth, seeing Zaku nod before letting his student nod his head. Ready? Fight, said Anko, as she wasn't sure why the sound shinobi was fighting due to his injuries, but chalked it up to Sephiroth wanting his student to fight regardless of the physical condition he was in, and to show what they learned. You should give up. Your arms are damaged, and to use them now would only cause greater pain, said Shino, in the hopes to end this quickly. Would you give up knowing your sensei is Namikaze Sephiroth? Said Zaku, seeing the Aburame look up at Sephiroth and then back at him. Good point, said Shino, as he began to unleash a swarm of insects around his person, and move them around the two combatants. Damn, this is really going to hurt. Decapitating airwaves, said Zaku, as he focused on using his one arm to make the sound-based attack, and blasted the wall of bugs swarming behind him. I really wish you hadn't done that to my colony, said Shino, hearing the cries of the bugs from within his body and the loss behind it. And you shouldn't underestimate someone just because they're injured, for it's people like that who are the most dangerous, said Zaku, as he revealed his other arm was functional too, and was ready to fire a blase of sound waves at Shino with little to no room to dodge. How very true. I did underestimate you, Zaku-san. I honestly was hoping to provoke you into close combat by attacking your pride, but it didn't work, and now I see I have paid a heavy price in losing a good portion of my colony to you. For that reason, I forfeit my match, and wish to walk away from here to lick my wounds, said Shino, knowing that the power behind that attack could destroy him at that current range and he couldn't let that happen. Winner by forfeit, Abumizaku, said Anko, as she hoped the sound shinobi would put away his arms, and not make a scene. I won. Had I been my usual hot-headed self, things could have gone differently, and my arms could be in a more dire situation. Patience is indeed a useful weapon for one to have, thought Zaku, as he returned to the balcony, and gave a deep bow of respect to his sensei for what the swordsman taught. The matchups after that were pretty straightforward from there on, as Dosu fought Team 10's Akimichi Choji with Sound being victorious after knocking the larger Jinan out with his Sound creating bracer after the boulder of a boy crashed into a wall. The only one of the Sound Jinan that didn't advance was Kin, but she was fighting Nara Shikamaru, and the boy was a tactical genius despite being so lazy, having used his time in the Forest of Death to figure out a way to defeat her. Sabaku no Gara fought Rock Lee, with the two fighting an incredible battle that made Sephiroth actually clap in recognition to their hard-fought battle. Sai defeated Kabuto's partner No Problem by summoning multiple tigers out of ink and had them devour the flexible Jinan to pieces. Sabaku no Tamari defeated Isis Tenten in battle easily due to the fact Tenten was no match for the blonde woman's long-range wind jutsu used by her iron fan. All that was left was one final match of the preliminaries. Hyuga Hinata versus Hyuga Neji. So we are to do battle after all, thought Neji, as he turned to look at his cousin, and saw the hesitance in her eyes in wanting to hurt him. Damn it. Why now of all times? Thought Kurenai, as she saw her student shake a little, but the presence of one person changed all of it, and Hinata found her chin being lifted by Namikaze Sephiroth himself, currently staring into her soul with his eyes that seemed to overflow with power. You are afraid to hurt your cousin, said Sephiroth, knowing his eyes must be showing a form of caring that went against his nature in being a monster. But just like the world changed, so did he, and Sephiroth knew he needed to help Hinata in this moment indecision. Why yes, said Hinata while her sensei near them was again gearing up to fight him. Understandable. You cherish your family. So few do these days. However, there are some times when we must put our personal feelings aside, and do what is required of us even if we disagree with it. This is one of those moments where you must prove your strength, even if it's against family, and someone you care about. It will be hard, but I know you can do it, and that you can win, said Sephiroth, with his voice becoming a near whisper and his face now almost touching hers. You really believe in me? Said Hinata, as she still had doubts about herself hurting someone, and from her own family no less, with the skills she had been learning from the Hokage. She had only just started mastering the super strength Tsunade always uses when fighting shinobi or punching perverts like Jiraiya out of windows. Of course I do. Every time we have met, I keep telling you, Hyuga Hinata, that your potential is there, but the only way it will come out is if you let it out, and it will not happen unless you possess the courage to take that first step forward, said Sephiroth, as he saw Hinata nod her head slowly, and then walk down to face Neji. If she dies because of this, then I will use all my power to make you suffer, and beg me to kill you, said Kurenai, as she knew Neji was a prodigy of his clan, and feared that even with Tsunade helping Hinata that the match was not in her favor. The fact you do not believe in your student makes me question your right to be a Jounin sensei, said Sephiroth, sensing the killer intent from the woman just a few feet from him. What did you just say? Said Kurenai, as she wanted to lash out at him, but knew that Haku would intervene, and get the leaf in trouble for it. You act more like an overprotective mother to her than a sensei. You act like Hinata is a fragile child, who will break under the slightest bit of pressure, and needs to be constantly smothered by your version of love. I do not see that, said Sephiroth, as he sensed more than saw Hinata's body become firm with resolve, and prepared to do battle with Neji. Then enlighten all of us and tell everyone what you see when it comes to Hinata, said Kurenai, as she wasn't going to admit certain paternal instincts had come up, and ruin her chances to be Team 8 sensei after the Chunin exams were over. I see a warrior. A new ready-to-be molded warrior, who will become more powerful than anything you could dare dream, and, said Sephiroth, smiling down at the girl now battling it out in a thick and fierce gentle fist fight against Neji, while she used her own flexibility into her gentle fist style to throw the older of the two Hyuga off his game. A style that would be banished by the orders of the Hyuga clan elders. And what? Said Kurenai while looking at the match with her eyes, but listening to the boy with her ears, and so did everyone else. Sephiroth paused, wondering if he should even speak what he wanted to say next. Could he say it? There would be complications if he did? He didn't want to burden Hinata with so much and suffocate her with the attention he would no doubt give upon his coming statement for all to hear. And possibly have the power to kill me, said Sephiroth with his words whispered from his lips, but echoing throughout the room nonetheless, and everyone heard them. Even Hinata and Neji fighting below with both Hyuga stopping their battle to look up at him in shock at that statement. What did he just say? Thought everyone looking at him in shock while Haku looked at Sephiroth with sadness on her masked face along with Hinata since she didn't want to be the one to possibly kill him if it came down to it. But Sephiroth spoke no more of the subject and just looked at Hinata with kind gentle eyes that told the Hyuga heiress he would explain it to her later. Nodding her head in understanding, Hinata moved quickly before Neji himself could refocus himself on the battle before him, and struck her cousin hard in the gut with what skill she had in using Tsunade's super strength to send the Hyuga branch member into the wall, causing it to cave in. Winner by knockout, Hyuga Hinata, said Anko, as she saw Hinata bow to her cousin buried under the rubble, and then walked up to the balcony before stopping in front of the boy she had a crush on for so long. That she still had a crush on. Is that why you are encouraging me to get stronger? So that one day I will kill you? Said Hinata, looking Sephiroth in the eyes while steeling her resolve on the matter. Should I need to be killed one day, there must be someone with the power to do it, but not just anyone can have it due to almost everyone wanting me dead, and such a power must be entrusted to someone that does not wish to have that responsibility. And that person, Hyuga Hinata, is you, said Sephiroth, seeing Hinata shake her head at him while tears started to swell up in her eyes. I don't want to kill you, Sephiroth-kun. I won't. You hear me? No matter what, I won't kill you, said Hinata, almost yelling her words for everyone to hear. Even still, I do want you to grow stronger, Hyuga Hinata, if only to defend yourself, and protect those you love with all your heart, said Sephiroth, smiling at the girl, seeing her looking at him still with those defiant eyes that practically yelled out what she had already told everyone in the room. Hyuga Hinata would not become the enemy of Namikaze Sephiroth and would never be the one to kill him. Period. Seeing his work done, Sephiroth walked away from the Hyuga girl, and towards Haku, now holding onto him while looking at his face behind her mask. Sephiroth himself didn't need to look at the mask, knowing that behind its enigmatic design, Haku was looking at him for the truth behind his statement, and praying to Kami that it wasn't true. The mere fact she quickly embraced him in a hug told him that Haku knew it was indeed the truth. We need to talk, said Tsunade seriously, as she wanted to know just what the hell was going on inside her godson's head by saying what he just said, and wondering if he had suicidal thoughts running around in there. Later. I have business elsewhere that needs my attention, said Sephiroth, as he vanished from her sight with Haku, and to set things in motion. There was still one more piece not in Konoha that needed to be summoned. Thanks for listening and goodbye.